There we go. Perfect.
Mommy, why do you see yourself?
Because I'm starting a recording, baby.
Now I can see myself.
I know. You want to come walk with me in here?
Yes.
Oh, no. This chair. And I'll start the other one. Okay, come on. What?
I don't know if these are the words you want me to use.
Yeah.
All the words. I use
Perfect.
all the words. And then in the back there's.
No, it's perfect. Yeah, that's totally fine. Looks good. Right. Oh, this is my little person, guys. She's tagging along with me.
Oh my
This
gosh,
is Harper.
Harper's cool. Harper can always hang out.
Yeah, maybe we should. All right, I'm gonna
Did you
sit
get
down.
some food? Do you have anything for me? I'm hungry.
Do you want? I do have Skittles.
For asking her.
So I'm literally gonna put this right here because you're gonna be up here talking, right?
I'm not talking.
So
It's them.
okay,
So
we'll put two, and I'll put one at the other end. Yeah. What do you think?
They're probably not going to want to get up to present. So can we put them like diagonally and capture like all the people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I might want to put them closer,
14 years.
right?
For that table?
Like right here. Because how many are you having?
I think we've got 9.
Okay.
Or maybe 8.
Is this setup okay for this room, or do you want us to pull the tables apart?
I don't know. I think it's going to be too hard to video if we pull the tables apart. I like a U, but
Yeah.
I don't think it'll work for the video very well.
Yeah, I think it'll be.
I mean, I remember like when Benoit did his classes and I was doing the video, it was always tricky when it wasn't just the rectangle.
It's harder. Next
I
session.
was trying to read everything last night.
Tomorrow, are we back here or are we over
No,
there?
you're in
Okay.
2204.
So I'll make sure they know that today and they've all been in that room before
Yeah.
already.
They know. 2204. It's in their live stream class.
Who's the girl in Terrence Cube?
I did.
Oh, Malika probably.
Is she like,
She is the ed tech for the business call. They're
Oh.
my buddies.
hello?
Oh, you done? Oh, no. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I was looking at
Yeah.
it last week, so I was trying to get everything done.
Yes.
It's a little mini.
Yeah.
And then I switched focus when I was originally presenting earlier in the class. I kind of
Yeah.
changed it a little bit, so like my stakeholders are different. And
How are you?
and all that stuff.
Good.
And once I only got in touch with one stakeholder, and when I was talking to them, it seemed like they had everything that I was initially wanting to do. They already were doing it. So somebody else would take. But now I reached out to others.
Finally saw the grade. Thank you. I appreciate it. It came in a little.
It was so
It's not
something
weird.
weird is going on, and
It's
I
not
think it's on me because I've got 3 Canvas
Winding
tabs open
path
at once or
just kind of
something.
narrowed down.
So on my phone, on the app, it wasn't showing. And I was all upset because here I am telling you like, oh, it's done. And when I went back and looked, like one of my tabs had it at 0. And then the other tab had the correct score.
Yeah.
And so I just updated everything, closed
Yeah.
them down, and I
Yeah,
think it's stuck.
technical
Yeah.
How are you guys?
We're here. Yes, it has been a while. I think after all of this is said and done, we're gonna have to go back to rebar.
Yes, that was our plan.
You know what?
Yeah?
Please
That was
include me.
our-
Please
okay.
include me. 'Cause
Yeah,
I need,
of course.
Right, so last class, Brian wanted to, Conrad wanted to go out, and I was like, you know what? We just did 2 back-to-back classes.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just plan like a summer, end of summer semester outing with everybody.
So would it be tomorrow or would it be next week?
I'm down for whatever.
Okay.
So whatever.
We'll take a
Let's
look.
meet in
Yeah.
Laughlin. No.
But yeah,
Are you gonna sit
I'm
down
down
the
for
water
whichever
while
weekend.
Can you sit with me?
I mean,
Anthony, you're gonna teach
like, I
class?
feel like the summer has
It'd be
been,
fun.
like 85 years
I need help.
I'm like, please, just
You're so smart.
end.
We can draw.
Got 1 week.
You wanna draw?
And I I'm going my vacation.
Are you going into school now?
She's going to kindergarten next year.
Oh, nice.
So one more year of preschool?
Yeah.
Like, super excited.
She's got a new teacher though. Her school used to do kindergarten, and they didn't have enough teachers or enough students this year to do kindergarten, so all the kindergarten teachers were reassigned to the preschools. So she gets a kindergarten teacher for her.
Wow.
Yeah, so that'll be nice.
I'm assuming I'm friends with some of the people who went one. They just said it was like a meeting with Benoit and Chris periodically as you work on your project. And so, yeah, however far you get, I guess. If you don't build a garden, if you don't, kind of get that concrete, it's a paper time. Like I know a lot of them just go through.
Wow.
Which is sort of not what they
I hate writing.
wanted.
Oh, I shouldn't say that so loud. Please.
I'm a writer and I get burnt out very easily. I was doing like graphic, such basic stuff, and I was like, I think I could do this for a living. I don't have to use words, but the different set of skills.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm here. That's what I do.
Very good, Tricia. Thank you.
Welcome. We're also here.
Yes.
How have you been?
You know what? I need a break this summer. I think that's the main thing I'm feeling.
I like the pace in this class better than the last two, though.
Yeah.
Last two were overwhelming.
That's fine. I actually wanted to just do a lot this summer, and it's just not happening. So,
Yeah.
Of course, not really a lot, but I think there were some shows that came.
Yeah.
You know me. This is not. Do you have any cashews or
Yeah, I
blueberry cups? Thank
I feel
you.
like you might.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I went out of town for the first time last week, and I like Thursday.
I've gotten better.
That's the only thing I've done.
That's good.
I eat breakfast every morning now. Try to fight that. Yeah, I actually eat like a real breakfast now, and I snack all day.
That's the worst. I
And I'm like,
and you as much as you want.
Cut out most alcohol
right, and
during
so
the week,
luckily his sister and my sister-in-law moved in.
but not as much beer.
So
I was
her
like,
and
now
her
you're
boyfriend and
just
him have been like, I'm like, ask Ksenia to
Yeah.
go to the pool, like, yeah. And he's understanding, of course, but.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
No,
Come here.
Thrones, you know?
Let's take a just one. Oh.
Can I just tell you, I'm really happy that my ex lives in Massachusetts. Because he can still get on my nerves to the nth degree, and I'm not in prison because he lives in Massachusetts.
My boss and I joke around and say that we're gonna rent an apartment like near campus so that when our families are driving us crazy or our spouses, we can just like go to the apartment and chill, and we're just gonna have bottles of wine and the couch. And then we've invited other coworkers. So like, yeah, it's like theoretically, it's like, like my boss, her daughter is learning how to drive. And her son just got braces and he was super upset. And so she's like, between my daughter crying about like driving and my son hating his braces, like she's like, I just didn't want to go home from work after a while. Like I needed a place to go that wasn't home. I'm like, oh, the apartment.
Yeah.
The apartment.
My daughter's taking physical therapy. And
So
she's
that's
at
what
the
she
place now. Well, she had surgery.
Mhm.
And it was, she's walking,
Okay.
and so I had to find a physical therapist. I'm a bear mom when it comes to my kids,
Mhm.
and so I appreciated how thorough the doctor was in Massachusetts, and I wanted that type of attention to detail out here.
Mhm.
I've had bad experiences with orthos out here and their PTs,
Mhm.
and so I finally found one. My daughter's at the appointment now with my parents. So it's like a Abbott and Costello comedy hour. They're texting me with a bunch of questions, pointing from where the paperwork is. I don't have the freaking paper. So I'm gonna have to fill it out.
That's why, it's hard when you're not there because they're just like, they're asking you all these questions. I'm like, I'm not at home. I'm not, yeah.
How would you guys, since you're the first ones here, how would you ladies, excuse me, like a flow of tomorrow to work? So we've got that little bit of a break at lunch, right? So I'm thinking like the before section and then the after section.
Right.
So what we need to cover tomorrow that will be critical is, I know you guys have already had like quite a bit of a course on data, right? I don't know if that was with Dr. Stream or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got that course. So we just need to talk about making sure that when you build out these programs, they're very data centric from the get-go, as opposed to trying to collect data, retroactively after a program completion or midway through, or building data collection because there's a grant you want to go after that's asking for it. So that's one thing we need to go over. The other piece is actually budgets for programs. I don't know if you guys have gotten that in another course
No,
yet.
and I actually was discussing that a lot. I was not too, unfortunately, the instructors or anything, but I was thinking about that and discussing it with other people. That I thought that, yeah, we really need to work on like funding and budget and all that.
Right.
That's a
We're
good,
supposed
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
We haven't.
Yeah, if we're supposed to like fulfill these projects, that's the goal. We don't even know how we're gonna fund any of them.
Yeah. So those areas. So ideally, what I would like to do is.
And I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but you said data. Yeah, we need to compile data, right, for grant funding. But I think we've compiled enough data to figure out what direction we should go with these projects, right?
Oh no. So the course of just to give you guys some insight, the course of tonight. Do you want to mute this? Mute one of them, Josh. Okay. So the course of tonight is talking through proposals. I'll play the role of like government or nonprofit stakeholders, right? So just kind of putting out things to question and counter each of the three proposals. We're doing that tonight. Tomorrow when you guys come in, we're going to have assumed that we are moving forward on one of these proposals. One solution is the only one that gets to survive.
Each or as a group?
Each.
Okay.
Yeah. Each of you, and I mean, if people are working as a group, then that's a little bit different. But out of the three comes one. And then with the one, we're really trying to identify all of the pieces that we can put together to be a final deliverable, which needs to include how you will collect data on that particular program. So yeah, I think we've beaten a dead horse in terms of research and that sort of thing. You certainly have done, far above and beyond before this class even started what I would have expected, right? So that's not the question. What the question is at this point is how do we build data collection into our program inherently so that we can satisfy grants or funders or partners, stakeholders. So data and budgets is what I'm most comfortable getting through tomorrow with you guys. And then I think there's enough time where if there's just general questions and stuff we want to work through that I can kind of bounce. We'll be in a bigger classroom tomorrow, so I can kind of bounce around a little bit and help you guys with that. But by tomorrow morning, I will have exactly what you are submitting in week 5 done so that we can go through it. There's not, apart from building in a data collection strategy and a budget, you kind of have already done everything. The program piece itself will need to be a little more robust, right? So the actual details of how a program would run as well as a timeline. But to your point on writing, I'm trying to minimize the amount of writing we have to do, right? Actually, if you're looking at something that would get submitted to even Clark County or the city of Las Vegas or something, the writing is really not the most important part, right? It's actually following the order and making sure that things are nicely broken down into readable, consumable paragraphs. The other piece of it is visualization would be awesome. If some of us could actually take our stakeholder chart and kind of lay it out like a company's org chart, so you can actually see how people will be working. That's a really strong visual when you go into a possible partner and actually try to pitch this. And recognizing, you know, that not everybody is going to move forward with a solution and actually implementing it. That, you know, to me, I have my opinions on that, right? Because I was involved initially when we had like high hopes that every legacy project is in fact that. But, you know, I understand that not every project can be seen through when we have already we will have graduated like 40 students, right? So how can we have 40 separate projects going on in the community?
Right, and we only have 5 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, but obviously as more cohorts go through it, they'll be able to fine tune, and hopefully more people will have the time and the resources and
Right.
stuff that they need to.
And some of this, I mean, from what you guys have pitched, I mean, if you're really passionate about something, I mean, 5 months is a good bit of time. Like you can actually really start to get something moving. It may not be done, you know, and that's unfortunate. But
Well, I understand that like a legacy project is you can get as far as you can get, and then the next anyone can come in and pick it up and bring it forward and keep, you know, and then wherever they leave off, the next group can come in and improve on it. And so, but I'm kind of like selfish. I just want my project to myself, and I want to, even if I'm not finished by graduation, I would still want to like continue to do it
Sure.
on my own.
And I think some of us are more suited to be able to do that just because of our positions, right? Like you work at the university, that allows you have access to contacts, you have access to resources that some students may not, right?
Right.
Like Neil. I mean, Neil's got access to
I know.
everything he needs to run a program, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So we just have to think of it that way too. So I think that's where those kind of the compromises come from. Just So with that, I'm thinking tomorrow morning we get together. Everyone kind of takes just a couple minutes and says, "I'm going with this solution, and this is why I think it's best." You know, and then from there, I can talk a little bit about budget and data in the morning and how I see it fitting in and how it fit in for Anson, and then from there we can in the after lunch, you guys can kind of work on what you want your data and budget to look like, and we'll go from there.
What's going on?
How's it going, sir?
Good. How you doing today?
Good, man. So I think if you guys are active in the afternoon, that's better than sitting around after lunch. I mean, that's at least how I feel.
So,
Yeah.
so tomorrow we'll go over how to enhance our deliverables, right?
Yep.
In the morning.
We'll go over the
And
details
then-
of the final.
We'll have lunch. Will lunch be provided? or
Lunch
will-
is provided
Oh, yeah.
tomorrow by Dr. Stream,
Yeah.
Okay.
and he wants.
Because it's
and-
a big difference if we have to go out in the heat and then come back, you're going to lose a lot of that momentum. I think, you know.
Right.
we've
I
done
think,
that.
yeah, tomorrow it's literally just walking downstairs. There's lunch provided.
Okay.
Dr. Stream is hosting a informational session on a new doctorate that they came up
Yes.
Yes.
So he wants us all to come to that. He would really like that, and that's why he's hosting lunch. And then we'll come back up and spend I don't think it's very long at all at that point. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it moving. I don't have a lot to lecture on. You guys know what you're doing, and the resources are there. So if it's, you know, just to put it in perspective, if we're talking about go look at, you know, the city of New York has this great open data. Let's go look at, you know, how their pothole program is able to actually report that back to community stakeholders. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, but those are the things that I can kind of jab in for each of you individually tomorrow.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it'll be a little bit of an overview in the morning, dive into like budget and data, give you guys some time to work, go to lunch, come back, and let's talk it all out.
I'm sorry, it's my daughter.
Yeah, no.
Therapy.
Fine.
Hey, Jen.
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm just impressed with everyone being here like early. This is good.
I figured 5:30.
I knew they went out food, so I got dinner.
Yeah.
That's.
I
I hope that's not all.
Well, it is until 8.
I had a salad today.
No, I'm not on a diet. I was about to say I am so trying to be on a diet.
It's not working.
It's just that It's been like a couple of weeks, and so I'm eating much less,
Mhm.
but I'm hungry all the time, right? So I'm like,
Right.
like fruits and
Yeah.
I like meat, so I'm like, it makes me even more hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I just decided I have to.
You came back?
Yeah, I got here a couple hours ago.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Just for this?
Yeah,
She enjoys flying.
I do enjoy flying. This flight was a little rough though.
I hate the whole like airport process. It's like hurry up and wait all the time. Like you gotta be there 2 hours before you get there, and it takes you usually like a
I
half
don't
hour.
care 2 hours before.
Yeah, I know,
I don't like
but-
waiting. I get all nervous when I have to wait for things. So I just go.
Yeah, I'm sure my bad luck would kick in, or I didn't go 2
Yeah.
hours, and then you get in like a half hour, and then you have to wait forever, and then my flight's usually delayed. And I was in Portland last week, and my flight was delayed.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, now I get to stay for like another hour. And, worst.
Yeah.
And then you gotta like get on the plane, you gotta wait for everyone else to get in. Obviously. Can't just be like, all right, I'm in. But
No.
yeah, and then like getting off the plane is like
Oh, it's a nightmare. I sit in the front though, so I get up.
yeah, I
and
paid like
go.
$20 extra just to sit in row 6 last time.
Yeah.
I cannot stand people who carry on luggage. I get the reason why you take it.
It's so, but
It's
everybody
so
stands
convenient.
up at the same time.
Yeah,
Like we
Yeah,
all
very
can't
unusual.
fit in this aisle. What are you doing?
it's like the
No.
second he pulls into the gate, they're like grabbing their suitcases. I'm like, where are you going? You're in row 15.
We were about to land. Like we could see the ground, and all of a sudden the plane like goes right back up. I'm like, what is happening? And the pilot was like, sorry, somebody else wanted to land at the same time. Very frustrated also. So we had to like do a loop in the sky and come back. There was also an extremely intoxicated man on my flight.
Oh,
was
There was a bunch of
so-
girls behind me that were like,
Oh, I love
Look at
those. I
this.
had, yeah.
Guy was screaming. Like I'm not even talking loud. He was like screaming obscene things. And I'm like, I'm trying to be really cool. And he's like, do you want a cookie? And he's like throwing candy and cookies.
Oh my god.
I look over and the seat next to me is empty. There's a half-eaten cookie and a milk dud.
Ew.
And I'm like, oh my God. He's like, you're boring. And I'm like, I'm not gonna acknowledge you.
Drunk, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was sober, but if that's him sober,
Oh no, there was a drunk couple on one of my flights when I was going to Dallas, and like they were on this flight, and they basically almost I think they broke up. Because like when we landed, no, because they were
Serious?
arguing, and she was like, "And that tattoo that you have of your ex-girlfriend, I won't even move it. It's just disrespectful." But they had gotten drunk, and that's why. And so they started arguing. Next thing you know, she's like, "When we get back, like I'm going. They were from another country, so like when we get back, I'm going back to my mom's house."
oh dear.
there was like somebody on Twitter that was like live tweeting a breakup that was happening on an airplane. Yeah, and it went viral.
That's so
And
funny.
he's like, she's crying now.
Oh no.
Trisha, did you get my text
How did you do
yesterday?
that?
I did,
Okay.
and I apologize for not. I looked at it and I just moved
No,
forward with it. And
that's
I thank
okay.
God because
I just wanted to make sure you got it because my phone was dying, and then I went
Yeah.
in Walmart, and then I was like, she's gonna call, and I'm not gonna have any service.
So I moved forward to his thing yesterday. I was in heat all morning.
Okay.
We're doing a tomato, getting data for tomatoes. And so it was in the orchard, outside from 9 to freaking 1 o'clock. Came back to the
in this
office, texted you, texted Neil. I got the information from you. I told Neil I got it.
Yeah. Okay. I was hoping it would make sense. I'm
Is he
like,
coming?
I don't know how to explain this, but
Perfect.
I did my best.
You did.
And then my phone died, so I'm glad you got it.
Yes.
And I was in Walmart with no service anyway.
Okay.
So
Yeah, no, fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And by the way, you're going to love interacting with Kirsten. She is amazing.
Yeah.
Her this week.
did you?
Yeah. She's on it.
I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Yeah. We might be working with the same group. So
Cool.
that
Yeah,
is a
I'm
bit of
excited.
expansion in that area. And is your focus primarily women?
Yes.
Okay. We can give you that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We haven't like talked in a couple of days, but I trust that she'll, you know, she said she was doing, I forgot what she said she was doing. She's working on something. So it's like, well, I'll be here.
And then,
Whatever.
let's see, there's another, have you gone to the, I know the location. On Rancho, the women's facility. Wow, I'm drawing a blank. But that's a resource as well.
Yeah.
Because so these women have been incarcerated. It's like a halfway house for them. They're
Cool.
and a lot of women, believe it or not, they get involved in crazy stuff because of boyfriend.
Yeah. No, I'm working on moving back. So I'm trying to get myself a place to live first in
Where are you at now?
Indiana. Yeah, I've been there since like March.
What?
Yeah.
When did this happen?
March.
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 I didn't know you were out of here.
Yeah, I had to go back home and sort some stuff out, and then, yeah, now I gotta find another place to live out here. My stuff's been in storage the whole time.
At
Yeah.
least you don't have to move it move it back.
Oh, I was not. None of my stuff means that much. It could have stayed right here.
Yeah.
I'm not carrying it back across the states.
I hear you.
My car is not even coming back. I'm tired of making that trip. No
Yeah.
way. It can sit in the driveway. Here's a gift for my family. My car.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing it again.
Yeah.
No. I didn't even make the whole drive last time. My friend drove it out when I moved, and then on the way back, I drove to Denver, and he met me out there and drove it home because I'm like, I can't do this. This is not for me. I drive more than 2 hours, and I just break down. I can't do it.
You get tunnel vision. Like if I drive more, I have to stop after 2 hours. If I go 3, 4, like
I get too
I've
antsy.
done like 3 going on 4, but it's like, yeah, I mean, I have to stop at whatever
Well,
3,
yeah.
especially for gas. Well, anyway, gas.
For gas.
I can't really do like more than 2 hours.
No,
You're
I
just like, how did I even get here? Like that's how I get after a while.
just
But it's like, was I even paying attention? Like,
No,
No.
I drove to Phoenix from LA. I drove here back and forth, and it's like,
I get way too antsy.
from here to Phoenix is long, and from here to Salt Lake, but LA to Phoenix.
it was. I couldn't.
I drove
Yeah.
from here to San Francisco.
Well, I took a friend, and they had to do something in Phoenix, and then my other friend was in Dallas, and I was like, oh, maybe we can get to Dallas. I was like, no. I turned around and went back. I was like,
No. No.
I drove from here to San Francisco for a concert. So we left Friday night after I got off at like 5-ish, 6-ish. And then we didn't get there till 6 a.m. because we got stuck behind a spaceship on the freeway. Not even a spaceship that was being transported, and they were going like 20 miles an hour, and they had cops all around them, so you couldn't pass.
oh my god.
So I was stuck behind them for like a good hour. I was losing my damn mind in the car.
Mm-mm.
It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. My husband was asleep, and I was like, so sad. And then to get there at 6 a.m. Luckily, like the place kept our room and everything, so we can check in, sleep, and then we had the concert that night. Go back Sunday.
It's a whole lot of driving.
Yeah,
It's a whole lot of being in the car.
yeah. And I've done like day trips to Phoenix for concerts.
I don't mind just doing a road trip, being the past.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But even then, it's a little boring. It's like it gets.
I hate being the
But I
passenger. I
like.
get so car sick.
Yes, I can't. I can listen
Much
to
rather.
music and I can talk and I can sleep. I can't read. I can't be productive, and then I feel like I'm wasting my time,
Yeah.
and then I immediately fall asleep if I'm a passenger. So like I'll be
I'm a
awake
terrible
for.
road trip partner.
Yes, exactly.
I'll go
I'm
to
sorry.
sleep.
I'll be talking, and then there's like a lull in the conversation, so then I'll like look, and then all of a sudden I'm just like asleep. And then I tell my husband to stay awake this time.
Mm-mm.
I wake up, good morning, sunshine. I'm like, sorry. Can't help it. But then I instantly get tired when I start driving.
Really?
Because I'm like, I don't want to do this. I feel like my body's just rebelling.
Yeah.
It's like shutting down.
Thank you.
Do you get tired immediately, like on an airplane as well?
I fell asleep before I even took off.
So that's actually a real problem. There's like there's a class of movement that immediately will put people to sleep, and even being in an airplane that has like the pre-flight stuff going on.
Yeah, I fell
is
asleep
enough.
all through that.
So yeah, I have it too, but I actually found it like online and we could, some Wikipedia or something. And I was like, this really fits. And I sent it to my mom and she's like, where did you find this? And like, yeah, I think you've got it. I'm like, well, what's the point of getting it diagnosed or not? Like, there's no medication. There's nothing you would take for it. But yeah, as soon as I'm in a car, if I'm not driving, I'm completely knocked out.
Yeah, that's how I am. I can't help it. But I thought because when I was younger, my parents used to put me in the car. Like if I wouldn't go to sleep, they'd put me in the car, put me to sleep. And so I thought that maybe has a role in it, just like how to have it. Yeah, and then I looked up the other week because loud guitar strumming, it has to be certain vibrations, makes me nauseous. And it makes me get dizzy. And I Googled it and it's like a
I wonder if everyone has like a pitch that bothers them, because like sometimes
makes
on
me
TV,
physically uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I never had that, but I know there's some pitches that come through on the TV and I just can't like stand it. My ears, it's too like high or something.
Yeah.
And I don't mind having, pitches.
Hey, how's it going?
Like I love listening to blasting music, that kind of thing. So it's like it's weird. Like
So just don't sit here.
so
Okay, you can sit anywhere else.
How are you, man? I'm good. This looks like the only.
Makes me physically like.
Yeah, we may need to get some more chairs.
And I always like my husband
I just
like
turned on the
hello.
AC.
Turn it down all the time to make you feel like nauseous.
Is someone sitting here? Right there?
Don't sit here because we're trying to capture this stuff. Neil is going to be online.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Jared will be, and I'm not sure if anyone else needs to be.
Is this, oh, wait. Is this?
That's
Brian's. Oh, that's fine. Okay, we'll move him over. He won't mind.
How's it going?
Hi.
Good. Good.
Joe.
Anthony, right?
Yeah.
And Triana.
Yeah.
Nice
What's
to
your name?
finally meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you respond so well.
Oh, yeah, no problem. That's what I'm here for.
It's nice to have a little guidance.
What he's doing.
Both of you both at the same time. Isn't that like multiple?
Anthony, and I
It's
have
like
to
9
blame
minutes.
you.
He has to do my
I have
review.
to blame somebody. I thought I had all of this
Luckily,
stuff done,
over
ready, in
three
a nice little box with ribbons.
Yeah.
I'll just let you know.
And our
Here?
Yeah, it's
conversation.
next
All right.
But it would have been so.
We might be singing over here.
I know, I read it, yeah.
So.
But it's good. I mean, I think that if you get to the root of what your goal was, there's other ways to get there. It's good that you're exploring them. Like, I'm not saying that one's better or worse or right or wrong than the other. I just wanted to put it out there. So don't, all your research is
I look
It's different because first.
You got a friend?
Bingo, camping and everything.
That's great, and that's what, but a lot of research out of my fingers, but it's really not extension. And now, we're looking
How about
at
you? I think we-
Yeah.
okay, it makes sense, it really makes sense with this approach, right? And then thinking about our audience, that's right. It's all right.
Good.
Right.
Chaos like that.
And so, in that discussion, thinking about, okay, vulnerable communities and
So,
you can't really feed the world.
No, that's
So,
Right.
I hope this makes sense. I don't even know.
Everything I read, I was very happy with. I'm glad I smiled as I read it because I know that there have been some challenges in there. But that's what this is about. I mean, that's what I can offer. Is that we can together we can really drill down to figure out if we've all been thinking about our issues in a silo. And we've been sharing it in the classroom in a very academic setting, but I am the practical lens. That's why Stream brought me in. So,
Yeah.
well, sometimes less practical than others. But how's it going? So I guess we should get started. Is Amber are we all queued up?
Is not.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Neil's not coming. Jared's not available. That's it. So
He did?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was no, I mean, it was
And then graduated.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's bad. Yeah. I'm not saying that on you,
For
but yeah,
this.
she like,
Not now,
I
but I
literally
gave
like,
you last
that
night.
paper was,
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
my
Yeah,
sister,
so
my
hopefully
sister,
that gives some
she's
insight
one of
on.
her teachers,
Oh,
master's
really?
teacher. She teaches CSS like English. So she always edits my papers. That's why when I come in, it's no joke.
That building's cool.
Yeah. So yeah.
Part of that, like,
It's better than nothing. Exactly. Right. I was like,
Yeah, so
Like
there's
the-
4 classrooms open.
I just can't I can't be bothered with putting the extra
Yeah.
effort on. Like I know that sounds bad because it's like, why do
Y'all adults and I didn't
No,
think.
we got a plan.
Yeah.
How's your week going? Yeah? Everything working out for this? And, oh, he is online. Okay, so Neil's online.
I'm down with that.
How we felt
We're
about
looking
it.
for
Okay, yeah, there you go.
but I'm leaving Sunday, so I'm trying
He's online.
No, and
Yeah, I was impressed with that event.
a lot of them are really
My world.
Joe, are you?
I'm Kim.
You're Kim.
Hi,
Okay.
Joe.
Nice to meet you, finally.
Finally.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Much
I don't
appreciated.
understand.
Jenny, nice to meet you.
Oh, that's what
I was like, I was thinking, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not still just like Ron. I'm like, there's this-
That's
I mean, you guys know how to make shots. Not bad.
yeah.
No, I didn't. This is just a shirt.
I don't know.
No, I graduated from Indiana State. Yeah.
The other thing she said was that I repeated one paragraph and all my. All my.
That was things around it, but I was
like,
It'll take so much.
So much work. It's like, I'm already.
Yeah.
One paragraph repeated.
Do you want to go to law school?
Yeah. Maybe.
And then I was like, stop being an
I
old
could
cheese,
try
let it go.
it.
I know. Well, you went from straight out of your undergrad, right?
No, I took a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took 5. I was 5.
I'm just been used to this.
Welcome back.
We're all
Listen, if I didn't go when I did, I don't think I would have gone because.
No, I told him, I think we should
It was
get
a
Yes, I
timing
gotta tell you
wasn't
too.
right, and I.
And she said that
you
it can go up
Yeah.
if I resubmit with,
Yeah.
No,
This was
back
mine.
to school,
Yeah.
and then afterwards, we know the.
I
But
can
no,
resubmit.
actually, the only thing that's
We don't have
really
kids
bothering
yet.
me is, it's not just the word,
Nope, none of that.
and everything, but I have to pay.
So yeah, but law
Higher
school
ones.
is next. We'll see how
I
that
got
goes.
time for that.
I think, oh, we were sitting here.
I
you
just
wondered.
found out though that you.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I gotta
So,
interrupt real
yeah,
quick.
literally, like, I have been doing nothing all summer, so no money.
Okay, so we're gonna see if Neil gets in. Okay, so you guys keep an eye on these computer screens. Let's see if Neil pops in. You just tell me if he does. So real quick, I think there may be some people that don't know Joe, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to start my 3rd year in the PhD program in the hotel college, and I teach employment law and hospitality law. And one of my research interests is kind of like community organization and entrepreneurship. So I took this class just because I thought it would be really great. So thanks for having me.
He's working on, yeah, he's working on some really cool stuff. It was exciting to see someone find out about this course and wanted to join in, and he asked Dr. Stream, and they made it work. So excited to have him. So everyone else has been a pretty tight cohort for a while. So, you'll fit right in. So this is going to go really quick. You know, my style is not at all to lecture to you guys. There will be a little bit of that tomorrow. So I'll do a quick breakdown of today and tomorrow, and then we're going to just do a round robin. The only caveat tonight will be, Neil's connectivity may be such that we have to just kind of talk about his solutions without him getting to chime in. And then likewise, if you guys have had an opportunity to read through Jared's, I would really like to talk about those. Jared actually moved up to Carson City or Reno today. And so he was unable, and he's also unable to dial in, or to log in. So he won't be with us this weekend, but I'm kind of working with him to make sure his stuff works out. So far, I've been really happy. Dial in, or to log in. So he won't be with us. Neil, what were you saying?
I was actually, I think, repeating back what you were saying.
Oh, it's just echo?
Yeah, it's feedback.
So if I mute, then we don't hear. Yeah, that should work. Let me turn off speaker.
Hello.
So if I mute, then we don't. Yeah, that should. Hello. So if I mute, then we don't.
Hello.
I think it sounded like today.
Okay. Neil, can you hear us okay now?
I can hear you.
Great. Okay. So a couple of things. So tonight, just as I outlined in the announcement, we're going to do a round robin. I'd like to ask if Neil's comfortable to go first. Just in the event that there's any tech issues, he can get your feedback and get off if he needs to. Likewise, Jared won't be with us, so we'll close with Jared's. We'll just kind of go through his together. And if we, for whatever reason, don't have enough time, we can finish up with Jared's tomorrow. So that will be tonight, where I'm going to wear the hat of stakeholder, like nonprofit organization or government stakeholder. Also, just kind of, I want you guys, this is not a time to be cordial to each other. You guys need to really be talking about the questions that you have about these solutions, because it's okay if from this conversation, there's a fourth solution that comes, it's a culmination of three. It's okay if sometimes we don't have, we've been working in a vacuum and we may not be expressing things quite as concisely as as we speak them as they would be on paper or vice versa. So that's all that we're doing tonight. When you get here in the morning, you will have decided on one solution to move forward with for this. I understand some of us may not be 100% sold that this is how we're going to go on our legacy. For that, it's unfortunate. I would love for you guys to have that work already done before you enter that legacy, but I totally understand. I hope that the skills you've acquired through going through this process will help you make quick decisions in your legacy if you choose to do something a little different. So tomorrow morning we'll come in, we'll quickly do a round robin of what issue or what solution we've decided for our issue. From there, there's two areas that I realize looking over proposals, there's the issue of client stakeholders. So I will address that with you guys. We'll have some real conversations about that in the morning. I feel like you guys are doing a great job of connecting with community and city resources to really get them engaged and talking about this. I'm not seeing a huge amount of clients though. And so if you did not have time to hit the streets and interview people, I understand that. We're in a 5-week course, but we need to have a plan for that. And so that will be talked about in the morning. Additionally, I know you guys have had some data visualization with Dr. Stream and talked a lot about data. We need to spend a few minutes and really make sure that we're building data collection into the program that we build. We don't want that to be an afterthought. You're going to need it for grants. You're going to need it to report to stakeholders. You're going to need it to get this project to go into another city or something like that. So it's really important to build data from the get-go. And I'll talk a little bit about what we did at Anson, and we can also share some ideas, together. The next piece is the budget. We have not talked dollars, and I do not believe you guys have talked dollars and budgets in this entire program yet. So if we have already, then that's great. That's a good foundation. Many of you are dealing with big budgets every day, so it shouldn't be that foreign to you. And likewise, those of us that have government positions, city government, working at the university, we all have to approve and adhere to budgets. So for those of us that don't have the opportunity to work with those budgets every day, you guys need to be a resource to your other peers in this room. So that is something that did not come easily to me. I'm the data guy at Anson. I am not the budget guy at Anson. I do not have a finance background or acumen other than the literacy curriculum, right? So the idea of actually putting together a budget and outlining what people cost and that sort of thing is really difficult. So I think we're going to address all of that before lunch. Then we're going to go to lunch. Dr. Stream has given us lunch so we don't have to survive off of Lifesaver gummies and Doritos tomorrow. And then he's going to be sharing a little bit about a new doctorate program that that's coming up. And then we're going to come back. And so when we come back, I would like to spend the couple hours really going over any gaps in your final proposals that will be sent over, next Sunday night. Additionally, let's talk through any of the data or budget issues that you guys might be thinking about that, because I will have time for you next week, but you also have to assemble a final deliverable next week. So you guys are going to be busy, and I will make all the time in the world to talk to you individually if I need to. But I feel like if we're in person and we can knock it out, we should. So it'll be a working session by all means, not a lot of lecture. And then additionally, we should probably just set up some times for next week and just lock them in if you guys want to touch base to make sure that I'm available, make sure that you've already got it on your calendar so we're not squandering to text message each other to find a good time to talk. So we'll do that tomorrow. I will have a kind of bullet point of what that final deliverable will look like that's due, next Friday for you tomorrow morning. But just an overview, it's everything you've already done, a little bit of expansion on the idea of the program. You will add a timeline to say no timeline will exceed 18 months, even if we're doing this in a make-believe situation. If this is just a model, that's okay, but we're going to keep it to an 18-month timeline. I'll share more on that tomorrow. Project Management Institute's website is down right now for maintenance. Tomorrow morning it will be up. I'll pull some timelines and share them with you to help you guys structure that out. And then so the other piece will be maybe just doing a little bit more visual in the proposal so that if you did give this proposal to a stakeholder to try to pitch to them to become involved, we don't want to read an academic paper. So we'll just use like lots of good white space, lots of good separation. Maybe for instead of a stakeholder chart in the Excel format, if you guys know how to put an org chart together, we can do some of that together just to make it look a little nicer. But really, you should be, by tomorrow, 75% of the way done with the deliverable that's due next Sunday. And that was the whole purpose of this course. We have you doing little pieces every week, and you'll have to refine them for sure. But that's why I really wanted like a strong stakeholders chart. We did the three solution proposal already. Many of you have already sent me your sketches. If you've got sketches, you can include them in the appendix. If you don't, that's okay. So I'll outline that tomorrow for you. I'm just going to have like a lot of coffee and get here early. I really wanted to see how these three solutions go though. And everybody, half of the class had some life expectancies and issues this week, and I'm totally okay with that, but it does impact how this weekend goes, which was my only concern. So thank you all for working hard to get those in. And if we want to get started, just kind of going over them. So for the person presenting, you should probably just jot down some notes of what people are asking you. And for any of you that have not had an opportunity to read through proposals yet, make sure you're jotting down notes because you will have an assignment due this Sunday, which is just turning in your notes of the questions and comments you have about the three solutions of each of your peers. Does that make sense to everybody? It's literally just solution one from Brian. How would this be implemented? What did you think about X, Y, Z? That's all I need. So it's really pre-work that you've already done and anything that you come up with today. Neil,
yeah.
If you were on, do you want to go first in case there's any connectivity issue?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay.
Do you mean go right now?
That would be now. Sorry, you're not reading the room like the rest of us here. Yeah, so we're ready for you when you're ready to go.
Okay. All right. Again, sorry I couldn't be there. It's good to see everybody. And I read through everyone's presentations, and it's very inspiring to see the work that everyone's doing. So the project that I forwarded is called CityLink Springfield, and it really came from several different sources, but let me quickly tell you kind of how we got there. In the city of Springfield, we've had several issues come up, and they corresponded with the last couple of classes. So I was able to kind of use what was happening in Springfield to do my assignments, and it kind of led to this. And what was really happening in Springfield is the Latinx community was finding their voice. There was a kind of a sea change in Springfield, and the community had come together, the Latinx community and their allies had come together in relation to this ICE contract, this Immigration and Customs contract that the city of Springfield had. Relatively small contract, but it was causing a lot of issues within the community, and there's about 60,000 people in Springfield. So we were working with the Latinx community and their allies on a solution, which the solution was to get rid of the ICE contract, but it's never that simple. There's lots of things that have to happen. City Hall was filled with people on a weekly basis protesting the contract, even though it was only about 14 grand a year, a very small contract where we would lease beds to ICE. So we would never engage anyone, but ICE would bring people in and lease beds. And so they raised their voice, and the council canceled the contract. So there was an actual sea change. And so I wrote in the last couple of classes about this idea. And then we got to the point where, okay, they've made this change, and now what do we do? How do we engage in a different way? Because typically the way that I think government in general engages minorities or people of color is when there's a problem, they bring them in to help find a solution. And what I started to think about was, is there a way to bring our minority community in and not ask them to do things, but in fact just engage them? And so I started to look at the Chamber of Commerce in Eugene and Springfield, and also the one in Las Vegas, because I wasn't quite sure where this would go. They have leadership programs where people in leadership positions pay, $1,000 or $2,000, and then they go through several months of learning how city works and how nonprofits work, etc. And then I saw online this program in Nashville. It's called My City, which is very similar to what I'm proposing. There's a couple little differences, though, that I think are kind of cool. And so we started to think about, is there a way to bring folks in to have a larger role, to have an actual seat at the table? And so how the program would work is the city would go out and find a cohort through our stakeholders, a cohort of 7 to 12 people that would actually come in and learn about how a city works. Because that's one thing we're actually good at the city of Springfield, is working a city. Some of this other stuff, we're really bad at it, but how a city works, we're kind of good at that. And so to have a cohort that is a collection of minority leaders that may not have access to this Eugene Springfield leadership or the Las Vegas leadership group, but to bring them in and actually run them through how a city works. So how the budget is put together and what that means, water and wastewater, housing and planning. So just the general information on how a city works, and give them that knowledge. And again, not ask them to fix anything, but just bring them in and work with them on a curriculum and work together to show how the city works and give them that background, give them a kind of behind the scenes look. And so in the short term, yes, hopefully there would be liaisons in the community, very similar to the My City program, where they're within Springfield, and Springfield has 6 wards, and they're in those wards of Springfield, and they can become the connection for folks that are uncomfortable engaging the city. So for example, if there is an undocumented family and they are living in if they are renting a house or an apartment, and a landlord knows that they're undocumented, well, we've seen several cases of a landlord really raking that family over the coals and charging them more and squeezing them for more money, because they know that if they're undocumented, they're not going to go to the city, they're not going to go to the police. Well, hopefully if they have this liaison now, they have an opportunity to go to this person who not only is someone that they might trust, but they've already seen the behind the scenes view of how housing works. And so they may either be able to answer the question, or they'll be able to now have a connection with a person that could answer the question for them. So that's the short term of the program. Kind of the medium term is hopefully we have people that are well educated and are excellent have excellent opportunity to be on a board or commission. So actually get that seat at the table where they can make decisions and help us make decisions. And then in the long term, hopefully we have now the best candidate for a future council position happens to be a person of color or someone from the Latinx community who now has this knowledge. So they are now the best candidate because they've gone through this program. And then if we think of kind of aspirational looking at the program, what I see as an awesome opportunity is for UNLV to kind of take this program and work with other cities to develop it and implement. So this program would be CityLink Springfield. UNLV could work on a CityLink Reno, a CityLink Tempe, a CityLink St. Paul, you name it. But cities of a certain size that may have a problem or a challenge reaching out, UNLV can go in maybe over a couple of days or 3 days and do somewhat of a sprint process where they bring this program to a new community. And so this program, as I went through the stakeholder list and started to talk to people about it, I was kind of shocked at the feedback because we started with folks in the community that didn't always agree with us. And in fact, some of them had never agreed with us before. And when we laid out the program, I think our largest, I mean, some of the folks that have had issues with us for years now want to be part of the cohort. They actually want to learn about how the city works and how the budget works. We also have a very active Asian community in Springfield. When I spoke with the Asian representatives that are on the stakeholder list, they were super excited. It really blew me away how excited they were to do something like this. And in fact, that weekend in Portland, there was the Asian and Pacific Islanders Congressional Committee. They were meeting on a similar program, but it was federal. So it was regional. It was a regional leadership academy that kind of does the same thing, but on a federal level. And so I was invited there in the morning. I was able to talk to like 50 people, leaders from around Oregon in the Asian and Pacific Islander community, and talk to them about this program. And the feedback I got was extremely positive. And a few of the people were actually kind of emotional because they never thought they would have the opportunity to do a program that would give them a seat at the table. They're so used to having to fight for everything. No one has really invited them to the table. So the feedback has been great. Our mayor gave it a thumbs up before I even got the project like written up. She was like, we're doing this. So I'm glad that Chris Stream approved this as a legacy project because I would have had to do it anyway, even if he said it's not a no-go. But that's where we're at. We're getting a lot of positive feedback, and I look forward to questions and any concerns that you might have.
You want to? So does anyone need clarification on the 3 different proposals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me do that real quick. So I think, I was looking at the overall program, I think is pretty solid, and looking at how a chamber might do it or how the city of Nashville does it. But I also wanted to be open to different opportunities for how the curriculum's set up. So there is option 1, which is the city works and sets up curriculum based on the departments of the city and where we think people might want to learn and have the best chance to learn how a city works, and then use that information to move forward and get a seat at the table and talk to folks. We also may want to work with the Chamber of Commerce. And so a Chamber of Commerce model is included. That's a little bit different. It's less about the details of finance, for example, and more about the big picture. And then the other piece is using a city curriculum, but partnering with faith-based organizations that may help us get in the door with some of our leaders that might be nervous still to work with the city. So those are the three concepts. The overall piece is the same, but the three concepts of how we put the curriculum together and engage are a little bit different.
All right, so feedback, questions, comments, concerns about one solution over the other.
So, hi Neil, it's Trisha.
Hey.
So can you talk to me more about how the Chamber of Commerce, how you use them independent of having the curriculum, City Works curriculum? Because I see it as something that you just push forward through the Chamber of Commerce, not actually having that as a separate solution, but including it in solutions 1 and 3.
So I think your question, it was a little hard to hear, but why not just go through the Chamber of Commerce and not start a new city curriculum?
Instead of having the Chamber of Commerce separate, with solutions 1 or 3.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Trisha, under the plan, the Chamber of Commerce, and I've spoke with their director and their board, they would like a seat at the table during one of the maybe one of the courses that deal with economic development and business. And they weren't as excited about actually taking on the program. And one of the challenges would be if they ran it concurrently, it might limit the amount of people who could participate because they're not they can only have a certain amount of people. And so there would be the typical leadership group, which is probably 20. And then they thought maybe only 2 or 3 additional spots for another cohort. But that's a good question. And I would want them to have a seat definitely at the table.
One of the concerns, Neil, for solution 1 that I was thinking about was just, when cities run programs, it's the amount of sessions that a client would actually attend would be difficult to enforce, right? So how do we build a curriculum and then ensure that they actually, remain coming, or do we kind of pad the number to make sure that we still have a good group of liaisons, by the time the curriculum's done? How do you guys usually deal with that when you run a program and people don't actually come to each session?
Well, I think that's where we have to think about it a little differently. So maybe we record or live stream some of the classes, just like we're doing here, in case there are people that can't make it. I also think that, I'm sorry, Anthony, were you going to say something?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay. But that's a great question and something that I would need to work through, and we would need to work around schedules. I really think kind of some of the churches would be very helpful. And so I think there's a role for churches in the overall program as well.
And it's not a required feedback, but if you guys do have questions about how it's working, please put them out there.
I would say, Neil, I like the whole part about Brian, by the way. How are you?
Hey.
Yeah, I like the whole part about getting the underrepresented minority communities to they just love government together as the man, and in this current climate, everything going on, they don't want to come to court, they don't want to come to anywhere, school meetings, nada, no pun intended. So that's like a big thing. So that's actually really great to try to get past that. I think that was like a really, really strong point.
Thanks, Brian. And you're probably dealing with, so my initial research was on Las Vegas. And I know Caitlin's going to do some work around maybe the same issue or something similar. And folks that are living in Las Vegas are like, it's a huge challenge when you talk about like a connection with ICE. Yep. Because Metro's connection with ICE is very, very tight. And Henderson just spent several $1 million to expand their detention center. And they're making about $10 million a year on their ICE contract. So that contract's probably not going anywhere.
Nope, absolutely not.
So the challenges in Vegas, I think, are really, really intense. It's all relative, though. And I think people in Springfield, when you're scared, and you have to do something to help folks. So yeah, it is a challenge to engage. Yeah.
Well, good job addressing that. I like that you made that first and foremost.
About another minute or two here on Neil, if anyone has any comments.
The beard looks,
do
the
it.
beard looks good, Neil.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hides the age.
This is Jeremy. I had a comment about that rate. I did the math, and it sounds like that contract was $8 a night per bed.
For
14,000.
which contract?
14,000.
Oh, the 14,000. So that's the other challenge, is that the contract wasn't used. There weren't people in every night. So if ICE found someone, they would, and of course with the new administration, they were finding people now when people are trying to go to the grocery store or when they're trying to pay a traffic ticket. It was getting a little, I mean, it's always ridiculous, but now people couldn't go anywhere. So they would use the contract to have someone stay at the Springfield jail for a night. And then it's like $90 for a night. And then they would take them up to Tacoma. So it wasn't always in use. Sometimes we didn't have anyone, but generally it was about $14,000 a year.
Yeah.
All right. So if there are any more, one thing I will do, because I know that there's really no need for a discussion this week, being that we're all discussing right now. So I will create a discussion for Module 4. If there's anything that you guys wanted to speak to someone on that doesn't get addressed during these sessions, just load it up in there for them. If anything comes up later or anything you think of, or for Jared, for example, since he couldn't be with us, that'll be a good way to go as well. So I'll take care of that. All right, so, and I'm okay with people going out of order, but Caitlin, do you want to talk about the parallel in Las Vegas?
Sure.
Because it seems like a...
So I've been working or speaking with Neil. So one of my solutions is so immigration in Las Vegas, one out of every 5 Nevadans are foreign born. The state population, I think it's 550,000 immigrants from 2015. So it's about 20% of the state's population. So I think with this current administration, it's hard to get them engaged and kind of explain. They become scared and fearful. So so my goal is the same, to empower them to improve their quality of life by learning and engaging in the community, being contributing members of society. Also, to educate the general public as well on immigration. I think there's a lot of myths and misconceptions that get passed around and cycled through the media and everything like that. So there's, I think, educating the general public on immigration. So my first solution is a leadership program. My initial thought was to work through the Chamber of Commerce to do the Las Vegas. They kind of have a model set already in place. I switched my focus in the middle of this class. I was doing a cultural program, so I didn't initially reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. So I don't know anything yet what they do, but that's my first focus. Carlos now works with the Chamber of Commerce, so yeah. And so yeah, just kind of modeling that and seeing if we can push it under commerce or my second solution is to come with a resource center in government, a local immigrant affairs office. It wouldn't be necessarily finding housing or finding or legal services, but it would collect all of the information for the nonprofits that offer that. So rather than just putting efforts, it would become like a resource center where someone can come in and say, I need local housing. Another part to that, they could also work on local policies and laws. I don't know if I could speak to that on that. I'm kind of for sanctuary, but it's the history of the state and things can backfire on other parts of trying to prevent that from happening, creating about or questioning about that prevent out of these sanctuary states and then counties can do so. I don't necessarily know what kind of law involved. And then lastly, that office could also provide incentives for agencies or nonprofits to engage in helping out immigrants, whether that's offering language classes or financial classes or legal services. And then solution 3 is just an awareness campaign that I mentioned about the general public. You need immigrants to be educated on the ways of American life, but you also need the general public to be knowledgeable on other ways of life and happening other ways of life. So we're hosting awareness campaigns through media, social media, all sorts of platforms, hosting events, participating in educational fair programs, and that sort of thing. And it would be contracts gathered through professors and lawyers and research centers like in the last classes, outreach events, and also having people, our clients, or immigrants come in and share their stories. That can be selling point to people together.
Feedback, guys?
So you know, we're talking about the subchamber.
Like platinum, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, my focus is different. So I reached out to like Catholic Charities, the UTBC, UCSC does some help with the education side of it. I reached out to them, but they're on the I reached out to Metro just to learn kind of what they're doing, their outreach work. I heard back from them.
I was curious about Springfield too, but there's like smaller chambers besides just the big chamber.
Neil, do you guys have smaller chamber of commerce in Springfield as well, like the Asian chamber, Latin chamber?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So a couple of things, Caitlin. First off, on the awareness campaign, Solution 3, I think it's a great idea. So immediately, like, I think of the high Hispanic population we have, Latin American, the idea would be like Telemundo and those stations, right? And I think they would be totally willing to partner, just in my personal experience of them wanting to be a community resource for their viewers. The only suggestion I have is you got to build, I think you're going to have to build liaisons into the awareness campaign to actually run it, right? So the trust factor there is going to be built by them trusting those liaisons. So it's almost,
really we could combine.
Yeah.
Combine most of my solutions into one, but.
And that's okay. I know I asked for 3, so it's, the other piece is when you talk about putting something like resource hub for it within the county for individuals and minorities and immigrants. My only suggestion would be is we have to think about it in such a way where you're actually putting those resource hubs throughout the county in places that they would actually frequent, because otherwise it just becomes yet another tribute, in that beautiful county building that I do love visiting. I always find new rooms every time I'm in there, but I don't, to the point of everything going on right now, they may not be utilizing it just because it's in a building that they're not comfortable going to.
Yeah, well, and I also realized that still holding it at or still housing it under the government, I know that there's still that, that gap we would have to somehow build, but
there doesn't even need to be a lot of branding to let them know that it's coming from local government, right? I mean, there could be some really fun ways of putting up, that resource, or maybe it's just in the libraries. You partner with the libraries and get it in there, because there's definitely a comfort zone to libraries. I've seen with the students we work with, they're very comfortable going there after school and that sort of thing. And the other piece of it would be in terms of finding clients and kind of recruiting those liaisons and voices. Catholic Charities places so many people. And so that would be a great resource to just get plugged in with those employers and get those stories.
Yeah, I finally heard back from the original person that I reached out to, because then I got the PR lady who just gave me their PR spiel and didn't really help me out. But I heard back from him, he's back from being on vacation. And so he asked if I still need him. And I was like, yeah, I would love to talk to him, just his connections, because he's also a refugee. So it would be nice to hear if he has any connections with other people in the community who are like leader types that can.
And my contact did not get back to me, so that's why I didn't push that out to you. Okay. But if you need any help with that, let me know. Yeah. So, okay. Anyone else?
I really liked when you said educate the general public, because a lot of people, I mean, if you watch Fox News right now, they're talking about
Which
cities.
we don't.
They're talking about cities that are going to be allowing undocumented citizens to be voting. And I could see maybe something, I don't know where you're going to go with educating the general public, but I think that would be really important.
Yeah.
So I like that.
It's fun. I'll tell you what I wrote 3 years ago. Can I agree with this issue more about awareness? The ignorance that is being championed across this country by a certain segment of politicians and citizens is disturbing for rational and free. The fear mongering and absolute lies portrayed by citizens of climate stupidity, where citizens are now accepting of being blatantly misled. An uneducated citizenry has shown just how dangerous it can be, and the lack of informed voters who think this issue is legal immigration has set a very scary precedent.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of obviously misinformation about them taking jobs, them not paying taxes, and even if you're undocumented, you still pay taxes. And then they say, that they're on all these services, and it's like, well, if you're undocumented, you're still contributing to Social Security, and you're still paying taxes that you can't even benefit from.
I mean, propaganda is the oldest trick of the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really,
unfortunately, it's highly effective.
I feel that I'm some of them pop rocks together.
Propaganda. Also became with undocumented, basically people talking to refugees who have done it in the proper way, and kind of maybe getting somewhere.
I wanted to focus on undocumented, but then it's to build trust because so I don't know how to really engage them without just allowing everybody to
Yeah, we talked about this. So I think the underlying motivation here is absolutely undocumented are people too, and they need this education, and they probably need resources because they may very well be contributing members of society, but they don't even have the ability to start the process to become legal because they don't have those resources. But it never gets off the ground with a lot of our fellow Fox News viewers and those conservatives if we immediately start saying undocumented. So when we talk about immigrant, we are talking about all immigrants, whether they got here legally or illegally or whatnot. But that's kind of a conversation Caitlin, Neal, and I had. Just, it's all about that branding and the way that we present it for approval. And so we start with immigrant, knowing full well that those that can take advantage will. Yeah. Yep.
Just like the welfare queen.
That's right.
Dog whistle. That's what.
Is there a way to gauge federal folks in the education process?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I'm gonna pull our timer here on the immigration liaison kind of issues here. Thank you both. Those are huge, really motivational, really time-sensitive needs that we have. So thank you guys for working on those. And if you guys have comments that I didn't give an opportunity, like I said, we'll post a discussion so you can address everyone directly, because I think it does help when you're crafting in week 5 here. Next up, who wants to go? Please. Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully, I don't know if everyone's read the discussion. I'll just keep it too complicated. So basically, my goal is to provide food resources as well as donations to college students in Clark County. So basically, opportunities for hosting meals. I was hoping to get prepared meals. Going through this and interviewing the head of food pantry, I saw that there may be issues and stuff. But basically, my goal is to get perishable foods because I want to tap into like all the restaurants. And, MGM is basically Resorts has a banquet program already, surplus banquet food program. So basically, they're already giving, they've just started this, but they're giving people food to pizza and whatnot. They're looking at that. So that's a good thing there. And prepared meals are good because they can be a hot meal. So going to the food pantry and having to cook it, I believe existing programs like I said, and nonprofit organizations are doing their best to provide these services. But I think they're in a conflict of people. I think there's a much larger need. And the percentage of students who have student security is growing throughout the years because the dynamic of the student is changing. So at one point I'm sure was more so students that are kind of still living at home or or whatnot. But now we have mothers, fathers, different dynamics, so income, and so in general there's more of a need when they're coming from various backgrounds. So basically, I have 3 solutions, and I also put a few examples that other people are using. So in general, I'll just go with the first solution. Solution 1 is a notification system or application. I'd like to develop a notification system that lets students know that there will be a food drop off on a specific day and time at the food pantry or wherever the location would be. Basically, when I was speaking to Brian Showing, he told me he's the head of the food pantry now. Their department is the head, and they just changed hands. So basically, they're very new to it. He couldn't answer actually a lot of my questions.
This is the UNLV food pantry.
UNLV,
yep.
Excuse me.
No,
UNLV
okay.
food pantry side. So basically, they just changed hands. They're looking to hire a director. They hired one, and she just left right away. They only have a few cabinets with me at this time, and there were things that she wasn't able to answer. So, but in general, that's part of the issue is that they do need a better infrastructure. So, anyway, other food items would be snacks, pre-wrapped items at this time. The students notified are currently enrolled college students that are living at the food pantry or students identified as low income or homeless through programs such as like the Scholars Program. They admit about 5 to 8 people per year that come from backgrounds, from homeless background. They pay for their tuition and all of that as well as their housing and whatnot. But food seems to be that raise money for food. Things like that. So along with the notification system, there's also an app that students can download to access the same information as well as locations on campus where they can go to receive the low cost meals. Other resources or healthy eating tips, because I think at this time, students also are really on their phone. It's good to have it on an app or something like that so they get notified when they want to go. Maybe reminds them where the locations are, other times that they're open, things like that. So, and a good example of a nonprofit using an app is GoodR. So it's GOODR, which is based in Atlanta, Georgia. The app links to food retailers and wholesalers directly to the organization. And they register with the app and donate food, schedule pickups, receive information regarding the process and how much the food provider shows them the food provider how much they're saving and things like that. So actually that inspires the food provider as well to join and help donate. So I think that was one solution. Number two solution would be related to the student level card. To identify students that qualify for free or low cost meals on campus or off campus. The card will allow users to get, let's say, 1 free meal and 2 low cost meals per week per semester, both on and off campus. So they can use their card and go into a subway and it will recognize that maybe low cost. Off campus, maybe just low cost meals or whatnot. But I mean, if Subway or someone else, another stakeholder would like to offer free meals, they can, and that way when the student comes in. And so basically, what I was telling you, that the food pantry actually, what I learned, does not collect data on students that visit the pantry, such as frequency of visits, date and times, overall usage. And Brian showing basically saying that that's something they want to do, is collect data. And I think that with this level card, with the technology we have these days, the team to show like, how often you're going and whatnot, so they can collect this data and figure out, the times that are most, the students need to be most. And basically, and so he also said that they only take the non-perishable items, but they would like to take steps necessary to have perishable food. So I'm really hoping to do that. And plus, the collecting data is great. So this solution is also something that I really want to work on, possibly. And a good example of program is at UCLA, which gives unused meal plan credits to students who are in need. So Rachel Smith founded the Swipe Out Hunger program. So that is where, they give their meal plans to students. So they're not being used. Solution 3 is maybe a little diluted solution, but still I think it's relevant. Grab and Go program. Create a free food delivery for UNLV host students, and that's actually very much smaller scale because it's for the students there all day, like 5 days per year. So that's really would be more directed towards them. But free food would be delivered like times per week per semester. UNLV volunteers to deliver the food. Along with there would be that grab and go. It's so kind of all grab and go where qualified students and usually snacks, low cost prepared meals, maybe like those craft sandwiches already on campus. They already have drop-off locations, but it could be where it's it's just to be where you go and get the food, maybe because students, basically I would say are kind of embarrassed about being food insecure. So, so maybe not putting it out there, like, where everyone knows you need it, but putting kind of that on their own. And the service would be first come, first serve basis kind of thing. Anytime the food is available, like from donuts to drop it off, kind of a thing, at a location. At this time, the student only can visit so many times, per week or whatnot. So, and he said he thinks it's once a week, which is very minimal, So I was hoping to just make it work, at least a few times a week.
Right. Cool. Feedback?
Okay, so for your first solution, I know you said you wanted to create an app with a notification system. If by chance someone actually does not have a cell phone, how do you go about? Yeah.
Oh, if they don't at all.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, basically, I was thinking of the notification system would be go through email or text. Hopefully they can look it up because they do have website for the food pantry and all that, and it does, I believe, I got a notification of the hours and the dates that the food pantry are open, like in our, you get it in the newsletters and stuff, but that can be easily missed, and then, and they have very little information on that. So I was thinking some kind of app or notification system, and it could be through email. I don't know.
I was gonna add on to that. Maybe do something like based, it would still be, I don't know, some sort of program, but that they can access like school libraries, computers, or something free. And then now they just
And that's why a lot of the students, they do their homework. They don't have, a lot of our students don't have computers or homework, so they use the library computers and they have to write it office for them. They've got to fit into their homework. Or they have no internet access.
Yep.
They have no internet. So basically, is it that device or you no, absolutely. I think it's the same thing because if they're a student, they've got to have access somewhere. They've already worked that problem out, right? But you might not just get that. Yeah, and they use it the other day.
Luckily, yeah.
Luckily,
they do a lot with the email and the Google, like we can call people with, like,
yeah, I don't know
Right.
how they do it. They
My son
manage
does
so
Skype calls and whatnot.
they manage.
So the one, and Shani, you and I have talked about this already. We have to make this something that does not appear as charity, right?
Yeah.
And so it needs to be well branded and so that's where the app came from, is that we actually were talking about that just in the sense of an app is something that they might feel more comfortable with. Like there's Amazon Prime, there's, these like delivery systems they use. Kids are using Postmates. I have a UNLV student that works at our office that I went off on her because she like Postmated tropical smoothie and the delivery fee was just ridiculous, but so they're very centric to their devices. So that's one thing. The other thing that I was also thinking is with the food pantry, if they are struggling, an underlying goal of yours, maybe like even a tier 2, is to really renovate the idea of what a food pantry even needs to look like. UNLV, to my knowledge, owns quite a bit of this area around Maryland, right? There's no reason why there couldn't be a storefront that essentially looks and operates like a convenience store that actually kids could swipe their Rebel card at. And there could also be low-cost food that is actually paid for by those in the community that don't have a Rebel card, that aren't in school, right? So it could be a store that is actually gleaning revenue from the community, providing a service, and that could be funded by interesting people as well. So maybe just tier 2 of this plan is, how do we fix this stigma of a food pantry, right? What does a modern food pantry look like?
I like the vending machine. Great. I like the card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, really, with the credits. I mean, I use those little customer reward cards. You buy 10, get another one free, whatever. Those are cool. So yeah, put it on my. And have it accessible for everybody. Just it doesn't recognize
they do have
your
that in a
credits.
couple of the places in the food court. Like if you bought 10, which is like maybe last year or something, they had like the salad part where like where you
like
a stamp
and
like punch
Yeah,
stamps.
yeah.
That's what I'm impressed with that. I mean,
Yeah, just all of them will be free.
Yeah. No, I mean even building stuff to get a free meal like when you use it. Like, you need it. It's true, but that's kind of why I was thinking of like even the card, if it at least can give like a couple of meals every week, or one meal that's just free every week, and then supplemental like low cost.
Now with that though, now have to consider if businesses is going to contribute to it, and you you're just telling me they're in.
Hopefully they'll take entrance.
Well, that was pretty cool. So she didn't go into detail, but the MGM program is actually taking banquet food that was not consumed, that's like still has not been served, and 3 Square is flash freezing it as like meals for the future.
Wow.
I thought that was pretty awesome. I mean, it's a lot cooler than the soap bar stuff, right? Like taking the recycled soap that always kind of freaks me out, but this sounds like totally legitimate. So.
Well, and Urban Turban and like a lot of other places anyway give to homeless during the holidays, times of the year.
Sure.
So if I could just get them to, to
At the end
this
of the month.
community, our UNLV students are important. All of our students are important to the community. So I think, you know, it maybe just takes a little convincing to like kind of get them to do it a little more often.
Because you die if you can only do once a month.
No, once a week.
You could almost die once a week.
No, but I mean, this is supplemental to their
Right.
normal food. This is
Understood.
supplemental to what they usually get, but it would be so that at least, it's not to feed them every single day, because I don't think, you know, that would be a lot of partners, a lot of people that have to, and I think it would work better if it was like, you know, 1 to 2 times, you know, or various, you know, like I said, one free meal, like low cost meal, you know, so that they can, so if they have, let's say, $2.50, you know, at Subway, they can spend $2.50 and get a meal, you know, get the sandwich, the chips, and the drink, even though it's usually $5 or $6.
You can, with certain restaurants, going it, would this be, would this be like an additional, like discount on top of that?
This would be like basically
A subsidy.
the program. Yeah, the program would be on like entered onto their card.
Okay.
So
like
it's
an
not for
EBT
everybody.
program
right.
for
Yeah,
students.
exactly.
Students on campus.
Right, and they would just.
Yeah, they have to look this up.
Yeah, and I mean, you could even, I mean, the card could be adapted to be a Visa card at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing stopping you from using, you know, like a debit card type of thing. So that's definitely reasonable with some planning, right? But the Rebel card is clearly the easy way to go. I mean, it's loaded up.
Like, you're not even touching data or anything. So how do you know how
I
much
was
or
surprised.
how little
I
is
would-
being
yeah,
used or
Because they don't want
like,
students to feel stigmatized, right? So
Or even taking data from like, I don't know.
Like,
Yeah.
I guess student people are even
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to
I mean,
think,
and
but
maybe
it happens all the
yeah,
time.
Maybe the department that had it before had some data or whatnot, but their department, theology,
Okay,
I mean, at the
public health.
so they don't have that information.
we do release forms with our students, with the students, so most of them are minority students and low income. So we do a release form when we sign them into the program, that we are going to look at what services they're using and how often they're using them, and so that we can help design better programming the following semester. But we do assure them that even when we release their name for, because we use a third-party text company that just sends out texts for us, and we assure them even when we use their name or their student number that no information other than that is being used. So we have them sign all that stuff and then get into the program. And they're signing so many other things that they're not really thinking too much about it. But they do get a copy of it. But that's how we get over that, so that we can always understand, you know, what our students are doing and what they're attending and how they're using the program.
And with the app, maybe there is a way that that they could rather when they log in, like maybe RSVP, like or something, or maybe just like press a link if there is that day, like that there's something wrong.
I think we assume when we use an app that we're being logged, right? Isn't that like
We
a
should
general
be.
assumption, right?
That's a whole different class.
If
With
you
the
log
app,
into
though.
something,
There will be a whole
Yeah.
thing with the app, probably like
somebody's logging that.
They just check the display.
Yeah.
We do.
Recent certain things I like comes up on Facebook.
So I want to make sure we stay on schedule. I'm sorry, I'm the timekeeper. That's all I'm doing today. But
So can I throw out a couple of questions if you could hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So just on the app idea, I think it's kind of awesome. And I'm wondering if there's any like hack for a cause events where there's like 48 hours or a weekend where people that write code will come in and do free apps for nonprofits. I know we have something similar here, and we have a warming center, which I know sounds ridiculous to people in Las Vegas, but a center that when it gets too cold here, there's an app that alerts people to the hours and when they can come, and if there's room. So I don't know if there's anything that UNLV does or someone similar, a tech organization in Las Vegas that does those free app weekends, but that might be an option. And I think if you're looking at a food pantry, that city zoning might be able to be adjusted. If it's a nonprofit food pantry, you may be able to put one in a spot that you typically wouldn't. And that might give it more of that store feel where people are more readily willing to use it. So you might want to check with, your local government contacts to see if someone in planning can give you information on zoning adjustments that could take place, so you could put a food pantry in a place where you maybe not. So maybe Maryland Parkway isn't zoned for it, but as part of this program, they'll allow an adjustment.
The businesses that you've talked to, are they receptive to giving discounts, or how are you going to fund
So
this?
I have not been able to speak with anyone just yet, and so that's what I would do. A major part is to see what they currently doing, if they're willing to do.
For the app, is there a way to like let them decide what they like, more bots, something like that, where they can advertise what they have going on?
Or maybe they just advertise and then allow the advertising on that.
Yeah, but for specifically like, hey, I'm in between 7 and 9.
Well, that was part, exactly, and that was part of what I was hoping to do with having the food come into the school on campus, was to like do that, to have the notification come in like in the morning, and then have like that it's going to be there, let's say from 3 to 5 p.m. first come first serve basis. So that way they, if they can make it and they get it, they do. If not.
And I mean, I think there's a hurdle, absolutely, if students don't have a good mobile communication device. I get that, but you can even utilize social media.
Well, that was the beginning idea.
Yeah.
That was the very beginning idea.
Yeah.
And so I guess.
So I think that there's so many good ways to get a notification out there. Yeah. All right. So if there are more comments on Shani's proposal, please put them on the discussion for this week. We're going to move on though. So who's next?
Joe?
Sure.
Do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, man, I forgot you guys were together. I was like, wow, that's really.
Do you want to kick it off?
Oh, you guys are working together.
They are.
It
slipped my mind, and I was like, wow, that's really aggressive.
Okay, in case anyone forgot, Joe and I are working together.
Okay.
And we both share passion. Okay, are we done? I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, Joe, would you like to go? Can we go?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe said it's okay. We are going to do some work on human trafficking and sex trafficking. There's like around 30 million people who are currently victims of human trafficking, and 1 in 5 of those victims is brought to or through Las Vegas for the purpose of sex trafficking. So that's why we find it so important. And our 3 solutions are: one is to develop a module, like an informational training module to implement into the hospitality colleges, and teach the hospitality students who are going to go out there and work in the casinos and hotels and stuff like that. And then the second solution is to have a community awareness day, to educate the community about sex trafficking and ways they can help. And if people need to get help, they can get it. And our third solution would be some legislation. So you want to talk about the hospitality part?
Yeah, I will start with the hospitality module. So we think that it would be really helpful, because Nevada is a hospitality state, to actually train. We have about 1,200 students a year that graduate from college, to train in their hospitality law class or in class, give them training on human trafficking, what signs they should look for, who they should contact if they do see something happening in the hotel. And we just find that this program then could be also shared with other universities, because Las Vegas is, FBI lists us in the top 13 cities for the most human trafficking in the world. And some of the other ones in the US they're mostly in California, like San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So we really feel that we could bring this module, once we create it, to other universities too. Because if we have hospitality workers understand it's a good way to have the right people to help them when they do find it. So when we were looking into like developing this program, we decided to look at seek out other areas that are actually doing programs. So Dignity Health, which owns 39 hospitals in Arizona, Nevada, and California, they do a training program for all their nurses. So if you go into an ER, the nurses have a way right away to discover if somebody, to talk to somebody that might have human trafficking. So we've looked at kind of what they're doing to add to our 45-minute module on this. And then also we reached out to McCarran Airport, because McCarran Airport's actually the best airport in the world stopping human trafficking, and they've trained now every management level, and they're starting to work now with airlines. So you have somebody being human trafficked on the flight. Their first partner they're working with is Southwest Airlines, and Southwest Airlines now is training their flight crew on, So they've actually provided us like a lot of information on like their training video and the stuff that we should be giving to the students that we're training. And then you want me to talk about the law thing now too? That's kind of the first solution, and just making this module and sharing it with other hotels and using other good examples from like the airport and from the hospitals, what they're doing in our module. And then I'll let you speak about the community one. And maybe I'll go to the web section.
Okay. So my proposed solution would be to have a community awareness day. I feel like a lot of people know that this goes on and they don't know what to do about it, or they don't like to think about it, or just sort of turn a blind eye because they're even a part of it. So whatever the reason may be, we talked about just gathering organizations throughout the community that work to combat this. And when I was doing the research, because I wrote a paper for the last class, actually the last two classes about it, a lot of victims in their statements said that they wish that there were more resources here in Las Vegas. And I was like, okay, there just aren't enough. So the solution is to put more. When I was doing more research, I found that there are actually a lot of resources. They just don't know how, they just don't know about them. So they just don't know how to get them. So I think reaching out to those resources, those organizations, or people who know where to go and stuff like that, just to have them gather, sort of like an awareness event. People can come and, you know, hang out, and just be like a calm thing, and people can get the information that they see. I realized that it'd probably be a little difficult to reach out to victims and just be like, hey, come to this. Maybe they're scared, which is understandable, or, you know, but at least if people can come, you know, someone like me, like I just want to help and I don't know how, so I could go attend that, and then I know how to help, and then I can offer my help somewhere. And I've reached out to a couple of nonprofits, and we've talked about what I can volunteer, and what I can do, like how I can I'm just asking, like, how can I help? What can I do? Yeah. So, you know, to have people like that come and just to tell the community, like, hey, this is how you can help. So I think that's a good thing. It doesn't solve it by any means, but it does help educate, and, you know, people can make educated choices and whatnot from there.
So this is probably a little bit out of the scope of what we've normally talked about in the Urban Leadership Program, but I was really thinking about your proposal. One, I was taken aback by the amount of work that there are agencies doing this level of work, and it's also something I'm not familiar with at all. You know, and I know that like Vegas PBS debuted Vegas PBS debuted a special a few years ago. I vaguely remember it. I did not personally watch it, and you know, it's actually been bothering me a lot. I mean, all of these proposals are great, but this one is just, it's so crazy to me that this is happening.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking in my head this week, like, how do you turn such a negative that's so something that, I don't think about it, and I don't really want to think about it, you know? So the billboards are kind of weird, but what is sex positive in this town that's okay are all of our strip clubs and all of, you know, that aspect of it. And I know that the girls that work at all these clubs do actually a fair amount of charitable work, which also blew me away, but I've learned about that over the years being a nonprofit here. And so I don't know if there's some way to get a more positive spin on it because of the people that you get involved, right? So actually adding stakeholders to the awareness day that maybe are a little more taboo actually may be a way to provoke confidence in those that usually would not have such a confident role. And I don't know if I'm using the right terminology there. I certainly don't mean to. Yeah, and I think, I mean,
create a line.
Yeah.
Almost like
yeah, I mean, I don't, because I think that they would care. And I think people that work in a industry that sometimes you have to be very confident to work in some of the industries we have here, even the cocktail waitresses in this town.
Right.
Go. And so I was just thinking about how you take someone that is very confident in using their image to make a living and actually get them involved in a cause where these young girls and guys in many cases don't have a voice at all, right? And don't have confidence. So, yeah.
I guess the big thing with that would be like, if you're willingly doing this, then you're willingly doing this. And then like, okay, like if I was willingly doing that, I'd be like, well, this is my body. I'm going to do what I want with it, you know?
Sure.
And so I think, because I like to listen to people who can just do what they want. So I can speak to somebody like, if you don't want to do this, like, I can help you.
Right.
There are ways, you know, you don't have to do this. There are choices.
Yeah.
You know, but they haven't had their choice taken away. But I think using people who are in the industry willingly, I think it's a good thing.
I don't know how you would spin it, but it's just been bothering me all week because I'm like, there are a lot of people that are very confident in this town that make a very good living because of that confidence. And yet we're also housing something that, because people have a lack of confidence and they are taken advantage of for that, right? And now they're in this situation. Yeah.
I was going to say one critique from you guys, the whole hospitality industry. I mean, they might not be so willing to have their employees disclose that information and to confront or even like snitch, if you will, because, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but they know they make a lot of money off these people coming here, running hotel rooms, doing that. And as we just saw, MGM just literally sued 1,000 gunshot survivors. I don't think they're too sympathetic to the plight of sex trafficking. So,
well, Aria got an award for helping girls get out of the industry. And so I think, like, my husband used to work on security for Aria, and so they're constantly trying to work with girls who do get taken downstairs for questions and stuff. So, but if they don't get caught, then
I think it's like a don't ask, don't tell policy. Almost like I don't think they're gonna really want. And the other thing too is like with like if you're a girl working front desk, like retaliation maybe, like Pimp knows you're the one who snitched him out. Like I mean that shit does happen. And it's like if you're making $11 an hour working telephones at midnight, you're really gonna want to like deal with that. So I thought my own thing was just
maybe you want to
and corporate doesn't want to lose any money whatsoever. Their bottom line is profit.
That's why the
Like,
training is so
maybe,
important because one of the things with the training is that we don't want the person to go and confront.
Yeah.
That's not safe.
Right.
No,
So just to
and
know
that actually, when you have a hospitality worker that confronts, that actually gets the human trafficking victim killed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's like part of the training. And then your point really, that's really our third part, and then we're making legislation.
Yeah.
And the legislation will make the hotels accountable. We have a couple of ideas with that. One we have where we're going to California right now. They just put.
I read that the bill they passed.
They're trying. I don't know if they passed it yet, but they're trying to pass a bill that basically. You know how we do sexual harassment training?
Kind of like Good Samaritan law.
Yeah. So to add on to like the sexual harassment training that every company gives every year or every other year for new hires, we're gonna have like 20 minutes on here's what you do with trafficking you see in a hospitality setting. And then, but it isn't then the housekeeper or the front desk worker going to the person. It's just them calling a hotline or security.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, that's kind of what that's all about. Just my other thing too was like
Hotline.
well, corporate MGM really wants like, oh, we can't go here because they make so much money off people running rooms that are
True,
barely used.
but they have to watch it because like my fiance who works at security at Lynch. So it's like just the other day, this last week, there were like 20 rooms with like sex trafficking going
on, and like they busted it finally. But like, you know, how long was it running? Or how long was it renting these rooms out and whatnot? And
I
it's
guess I have
like,
some more pessimistic view of the
Yeah.
corporation.
I'm
here.
sure you do,
Yeah.
and I'm sure some of it's probably true.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I end up,
There-
what about
it
security? He
doesn't-
goes, they have it all the time. We don't care. He goes, why are we gonna bust that? Bigger things to worry about. So,
Yeah.
That's pretty.
And when I worked in the casino,
Yeah.
the security guards didn't care there either. I worked in a casino on Boulder Highway, and they didn't care. They're like, hey, they make money off it. They didn't care.
I was thinking one of their just with all the like that,
Yeah.
You have to go through their.
That was one
union.
of that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just, you know,
Some
the
of
corporate
you don't
buy-in.
get paid enough, right?
Yeah.
Another part with legislation, and we learned this from McCarran Airport. So McCarran Airport, they know the only time, and it's usually women that are being sex trafficked, with men too, 95%. But the only time that woman is actually alone or been minor is the time that their captive will give them a couple minutes to use the bathroom. So now every single bathroom at McCarran Airport.
I take a picture.
Yeah, I
every
saw
time
it,
I
and I
see
has-
it.
it has a
Yeah,
closet,
that's right. And the
love
number is they've researched what number would be the best number for a 13-year-old or a 25-year-old to memorize. And that's the number they've chosen. 1-888-373-3737 and then 888. And for some reason that number people can memorize. So we were thinking part of legislation is we can also at a federal level make every airport at a certain follow this McCarran plan and get a federal law on this on top of the state law that we want to do to get the training for the employees. And then also with just what you're saying with the huge gaming companies, like corporate social responsibility now with the Me Too movement, with Steve Wynn going down, with all this is a big deal to hospitality now. And like we could go by it with the corporate social responsibility, do it this way. But if they don't want to do it, we can start to mess with like gaming regulations. If we have a big gaming company that's not willing to do it, all of a sudden they can see they're losing their gaming license, just like we've done with the nightclubs. The nightclubs now, if you ask for a drug in a nightclub, you know that the person has to be evicted right away from that nightclub. And if they have people in there, if they don't, the casino that's hosting that nightclub could lose their gaming. So,
Or even what about a phone or some little device in the bathrooms in the hotels where they can press
Panic
the button.
Oh,
Yeah.
Panic button or something where they know that that's specifically for that. I mean, you know,
yeah,
some
I guess that with the McCarran's
I guess
research,
high school kids pushing it up.
well,
Yeah.
somewhere inconspicuous maybe, or something that is just maybe becomes known that.
yeah.
The other side of the, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So it's a discussion about sex trafficking and I'm hearing a little bit of both. And when we talk about sex trafficking, typically, why we have certain industries, but slave labor is basic.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It is
It's a thing.
Exactly. You know, I mean, my mom, when she was off back in the day, she worked in the you know, and so things that went on then absolutely horrendous. But then you have a population of people who aren't used to that. It's still abused. Right. It is abused.
I think so in the hospitality training part, because he was more so focused on human trafficking, and then I was focused on sex trafficking. So we kind of just let's see where it goes. But I think so much like in the training, it's not going to so much focus directly on sex trafficking. It's going to focus on human trafficking in general, and then have like the
multifaceted.
Yeah.
Human trafficking.
yeah, and then sex trafficking is going to be included in that. Yeah, as a part.
The other piece on the hospitality side, I just wanted to counter the argument, Brian, is if this gets implemented at a university level, it is the university's responsibility to educate someone that's going into that industry on things that are happening in that industry. And then additionally, although you're absolutely right here in Vegas, and I think working security is probably a pretty good insight to it. A lot of the students that come here do not stay here. So they're coming here because we're one of 2 hospitality schools. That's how Joe got here, right? Hospitality colleges in the country that are kind of known for that program. So they go work in all various aspects, right? And so it is a disseminating training. If they get it while they're in school, it's something that they take with them to any property that they work at. It could be a, it could be a Marriott somewhere. It's not necessarily centric to Vegas when you implement it at the university level.
Right, and 23% of the college's student base is international. So then you have these students who take it, then go back to Singapore, who go to Thailand, where it's big back there, and then maybe then it will branch out.
Right. And you guys did hear about that Chinese girl, 12 years old, last week.
I mean, this week rather, and she, and that's what happened. This woman and a man, they entered the airport. They were there obviously to do that, to do that. And so, the woman went with the girl into the bathroom, that's where you have those couple of minutes. But she went in, she changed clothes, and the woman walked her out, and they haven't seen her since. And they were with a big group of, and whatnot. And so they're looking for, the whole airport was looking, this, that. They had even a picture of the car, thank goodness. So hopefully they can catch up. But it's, what that's.
Where was that?
In New York. Right. Not sure.
So I have a couple of comments if I can get in.
Go for it.
Hi, Neil.
Yeah, sorry. Hey. So I think this project is just simply incredible. And really, I think I read your piece like 3 or 4 times because there was so much in it that I think, we should be doing this right now. So there was so I have a few comments, but it's based on, I think this is incredible. And here's just a couple things that came up when I read it. I think when you talk about marketing, and you may have said this, it's sometimes hard to hear what folks are saying, but it might be a great opportunity for the industry itself to take the lead. And I know we talked about having certain workers, be part of like a community event, which I think is great. But if it looks like eating this charge, that might be a good way to market it and make it more acceptable. If these big corporations or these hotels where so many people work are actually think it's so important that they want to take the lead on helping make this happen. So I don't know how you make that happen, but that might be an option. I don't know if you've identified a legislator already, but I think the 19th session is starting, so you'd probably need to identify 1 or 2 that would help sponsor the bill. And you may have done that already. But I would say refine the language as much as you can. And I know you probably already are on this, but stuff like having to have 20 minutes of training and being specific on 20, sometimes that can kill a bill when you're trying to get it passed, being too specific. So it's really an art of finding everything that you need to be in the bill, but not being so difficult that someone might kill it.
Right.
It might also be interesting to see if the bill is passed in California, if that impacts Nevada. So it might give legislators more impetus to move if they know California now has this bill. And so we're seeing more people moving to Las Vegas or Southern Nevada to do this stuff. It might be helpful. And then when we're talking about marketing, again, I think the language is really important, super important when you're dealing with this issue. And I know in your notes, and it's just one line, but it caught me. It said, Las Vegas lacks a sense of community. And I think I haven't been there for 15 years, but when I came back, I was like, wow, there's really a sense of community now that wasn't here. And I think maybe building on that, like there is this new sense of community in Las Vegas, and this is stuff that we should be doing, and maybe keeping that positive. Again, it's something that's very negative, but keeping that piece positive where, hey, the community, this is a new Las Vegas, and this is what we do now. We come together with these issues. And that's all I have, but I think it's really awesome. And I have a daughter, and so that's what I always think of. I see her, she's like 13 years old, and I think of, other people's 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds being stolen from them, and it drives me crazy. And so to know someone in this class is working on that, I think is pretty awesome.
Thanks, Neil.
Neil, I think Kim and Joe would want to connect more on the legislation piece and getting some insight from you on that. So be on the lookout for their discussion, and maybe
and I think Jared Jared would be an awesome
Oh yeah, great.
person to connect with too. Yeah.
Jared's last name.
Busker.
Okay.
That's a great point. Thank you.
And just to add a little bit to the legislation portion, because I talked to Brian about this the other day, about how to bridge the gap between how like youth are getting locked up for like petty crimes, like trespassing and stuff like that, when they're being taken out. But they have to let them out. They can't just keep them locked up, and then it's just like a never-ending cycle, and just go right back to their camp. So maybe to pass some type of legislation that is more like a judicial order, where if they have definitive proof that these kids are having sex for money, they can keep them and lock them up. Not necessarily for that, because that's not a child crime, that's an adult crime, but rather lock them up for their safety and just keep them until they can find a place to house them. And maybe not so much in a group home setting, because that's the same thing of kids coming in and then just go back out in the street. But Brian talked to me a little bit about a safe house or some type of facility that's being built in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
It'll be open in the middle of next.
Yeah. So that's a great idea. It's a little controversial when you try to explain it to people, but we have a girls' home in Eugene that it's not a lockup and it's not a group home, but it is a place where girls and women who are are part of this against their will can stay and be safe. And they are locked up at night, and that's the controversial part. But I think they want to be there, and the challenge is transitioning out. But yeah, I think you guys are right on.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, guys, I'm going to close this one out if we can move forward, because we're just down. We're only here till 8, right? So we're getting close. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next. All right, but I do want to say I worked for a senator for 8 years. I wrote a bill and put together committees to pass it. We lobbied for it and got it passed for cultural studies in high school. And we worked 2 solid years really hard on it and passed it. And he's a dear friend of mine. And so he's a champion of the people, and he would love this. So,
What's
what you guys
his
know.
name?
Tick Sigerboom.
Oh,
Yes. And I'm going to start working on this campaign in the next week.
Yeah.
So
That would be great. I'm sure
yes.
a number of people would love to run with it.
Yes, he would love it. And he's a big part of the different chamber of commerces. He, like in every one of us, the Asian one, the Hispanic one, he's like everything. And
And he's kind of controversial. I
He's
he
very
brought,
big.
he
No,
brought in the marijuana.
he absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's the main marijuana guy.
He's not
a
afraid of anything or anyone, and he's also an attorney, and he also is amazing at taking on big companies, the school district. He's amazing. I can't say it enough. I mean, I would love to help on this. Really.
That's exciting.
Okay,
Awesome.
sorry, I know you said
No, it's
that.
okay. Just
Okay, so for mine, of course, no surprise, it's for children with disabilities. My stakeholders are all the people in the city that are doing great work in these areas already. CCSD took on a bigger role than I thought it was going to take on after interviews. I still have a couple more interviews. But my idea number one is, okay, so they're all basically the same thing as teaching, because that's my thing. I do it at work every day is teaching and helping people with resources and connecting them. We talk a lot about where mostly stops, and I've heard it over and over, is the connection between not just creating the resource in some areas, in some problems, it's the resources. There are plenty of resources. The thing is that this community does not trust a lot of the resources or are afraid to connect. So what we need are liaisons that can go in and connect these two. The first one is about resources. One place that can connect with this community. We also have the problem of undocumented parents that don't want to reach out or be a part of the system because they're afraid.
there is a part of this population that doesn't speak English. There's a big part of this population that doesn't have insurance. And so embarrass and shame also adds to not being able to for things like Hathers, things like this. Even when they can connect, they're very difficult to get, and then you get frustrated, and a lot of children's needs don't get met. So what I want to create is a resource center, basically a group that already works with CCSD and will work with other community partners that can give a month-to-month resource list of not just, I mean, we can all get a provider's list if you have insurance. We can all get a provider's list if you have Medicaid or Medicare. The thing is a lot of these doctors don't stay. You finally get a good doctor, they're gone. It can be frustrating if you're a single parent or a person with 6 kids or a family that is getting by on minimum wage. You can't come home at 5 o'clock or before 5 o'clock and make a phone call. It's going to take you an hour and a half to go through insurance, or that doctor that you have on your list is no longer takes Medicaid. Some doctors take Medicaid this month and then they lose Medicaid. They stop taking Medicaid the following month. It's frustrating.
And waiting lists can be like
yes, exactly. And so they don't have the time to sit on the phone. And being a mother of a disabled child, not a child anymore, but in the day, it was a full-time job, making sure that we were ordering appropriate medications, making sure that we were getting them, making sure that we were getting the durable medical equipment that we needed every month, and we had to call in that order every time. These were real big problems, and I did it full time. So what I want to do is set up these families to where they can come in person and go over some of the problems that they're having, the barriers that they're having with resources. Also, that we have an updated list that can be sent out via email, sent out in snail mail, however way, smoke signal. But let people know these are the current doctors that are available. And I also want to have a component where they can go like how we do on Slack, where we go on social media and we have a page where we can rate our doctors. Because a lot of times you get doctors that don't particularly care for you because you're a lot of work, a lot of hustle, and they don't make as much money on you as they make on someone else who has better insurance. And so we get into categories of the stigma or treated differently, but we can rate these and we can discuss, like, this was a great experience and this doctor was really helpful. And in what ways were they helpful? You might have two medical supply companies. If you're looking for this is where you get it. If you're looking for that, this is where you get it. So my first idea is just one place, and once we develop those relationships with these families, and that's the gap. Is number one is have this program run by people who either have family members or are disabled. So many of the disabled children that grew up with my daughter, they would all work for an organization or devote volunteer time to work with these families, and that helps to bridge the gap and have it run by people that look like the people in that area or community. And we can even put families together based on cultural experiences, which cultural, that's coming up the next one. Okay, so the next idea is Keychain, which is actually the name of my fictitious nonprofit. Keychain, the idea is that the key is the child, the disabled child. Knowingly empowering yourself is what it stands for. And it's about self-efficacy and learning to be independent. The chain is the family. So the idea, once again, is similar. It's a program that would be attached to an already existing program. And it's about teaching the child first a new way of looking at his disability, to focus on ability, not disability. And what that means, and how do we work towards equality, privilege, or not, what other people see it as, giving what that additional help is often looked at as special privilege.
So it's the child first looking at himself and understanding his own identity and self-awareness, and then teaching the family, how do we help this child learn as he grows, age-appropriate behavior, and involving siblings, support system, grandmas and grandpas. A lot of these families have live-in aunties and uncles and grandparents. And so when the family does things for this child as they grow, depending on their age, they say, I help you learn how to do it now, but remember that in 2 years from now, you'll be able to do it for yourself. So we have lots of milestones, and this group works with these families. So you start with 4 or 5 families, and then you work with them learning this new mindset, mindfulness and mindset of learning to be independent and being able to move towards the goal of being self-reliant, independent, and being able to live on your own if that's appropriate. Of course, it has to do with what kind of disability they have and their limitations. But within their limitations, what is this child able to do over the years if everybody is committed? And it lowers the amount of siblings being resentful, which I see a lot. It helps the parents to stop enabling and being accountable, because you've got other siblings saying, Mom, you're not supposed to be doing that. You know, we have a real huge problem with weight with children with physical disabilities. Why? Because parents compensate with food, compensate with attention, which leaves less attention for the rest of the family. You've got husbands and wives struggling with the dynamic, high divorce rates, because it's a lot of stress. And usually one person takes the lead on, I'm going to give this child everything, since he's been denied something everybody else just naturally gets. And so this is a mindset. So I want to work on this mindset. That's key change. The third one is documentation preparation. And what it does is it's a place where people can get help with, how do I submit proper documentation? What is that? Where do I get it? A lot of people don't get their needs met or go to resources because they don't have the proper documentation. They don't receive Medicaid because they don't know how to do the paperwork. Hands-on, one-on-one, a place will walk you through it, will help you understand, where do I get it? What do I need to do with it once I do get it? And what should I expect? We walk our students in the program I work for, TRIO. We walk our students through every step. FAFSA sounds great. I have students that tell me, I had to quit school, I'm going to quit school because I can't pay for it. They know what FAFSA is, but we assume it's not for us, first generation stuff. These issues come up a lot with this population as well. I've spoken to at length with Easter Seals. They offered me that. And yes. So anyway, the important part is
that can be important too.
They were talking about what they have currently. They're one of the biggest players in the community. And they talked about, she told me about programs they've tried, programs that didn't work, programs that are working, what the real gaps and issues were. And then she hammered me with, what is your solution? So I went over my solutions with her, and she was like, this is fantastic. And she gave me her phone number. She says, I want you involved with us. They were instrumental with my daughter in respite. So they have a day where children can go and stay, and then you can spend the rest of your day with your other siblings who probably don't get much attention during the time that they're, or don't normally get that time. But I was a part of it, but didn't know that they offered all these other things. So I knew these gaps existed. And so this documentation, okay, so we started with like Medicaid. Also, after Medicaid is for students to receive benefits in school, they have to go through a procedure called an IEP. That's an individualized education plan. And students receive services by the school district, and they're forced, this is like the Bible, to offer these services. But people don't know how to do this, and they don't know their rights. And so we would come in as advocates, which one program is doing, but they help teach how to put together an IEP. Once again, these families aren't reaching these people, and they can only serve a small percentage of the people that actually need help. There is another outside
for-profit company that charges $300 per hour to go and be an advocate for families and speak on their behalf for these IEP meetings where this Bible is established. So what I want to do is that once again, the same group works with these families to discuss what kind of documentation do you need? What kind of help do you need? How can we prepare you for this IEP? Set it up and then know what your rights are, and then make sure that the school district is on board with what your child is needing, that they're going to receive those services. Then after that is if the child goes on to college, there's a DRC, the Department of Disabilities Resource Center. Right. A lot of students don't know to register there. And how do I know this? I know this because I have students that have disabilities and they're not receiving any benefits. And so they struggle with things like anxiety, note-taking, all of these typical things for many different reasons. And I walk them through, here's the disability center, you have to register. Once you're registered, all these options in this world opens up to you. These resources exist, but someone has to be in between to help walk them through. And here's where I want to do a mentorship where we connect college students with younger students to already have these discussions so they already know about the resource. And then have people that have gone to college that are disabled to come in and work with college students to be mentors. I talked to several groups that work with the Wounded Warrior program. I know they did a lot of work with several programs with my daughter as she was growing up. She got to ski with them. She played tennis with them. But a lot of these veteran programs right now, they're really promoting mentorship because these guys are not only learning to deal with their new disability, but they find a lot of what's the word? Meaning in helping younger children work with their disabilities and be role models. And so this component presents itself throughout all three of these programs. And I haven't met one program yet that said that we would not be invited to participate in school events, in some of their other events they already have, to just, go ahead and introduce what's available. So that was a real positive response. When you asked me where would I get my population, well, I have lots of population.
Yeah.
My daughter has lots of friends, and CCSD invited me to several of the new programs because I've become out of the loop. I've been kind of busy with school and work, but they have lots of programs that I've been invited by the directors of those programs to come in and meet these families because they believe that these families are really looking for people that can and will devote time to helping them solve some of these problems because they can be overwhelming. And a lot of them are unfortunate families that are just afraid. So if we could get them the information, they don't feel like it has to be that in front of seeking the help, it would be really helpful. And I found that transportation. A second reason they're not getting this help is transportation. So it opened up a new gap. I went, oh my God, I'm ready for this. But so those are my three ideas.
Neil, do you have anything to say?
I do. I can go first. So I thought that I came up with a good name for my program with CityLink, and then I saw Keychain is like so much better than mine. It's very cool. It would be interesting if that was. Are you planning to have that as the name of the entire program? Because I don't see why all three of your proposals can't be.
Yes, Keychain.
Okay. So that's pretty great, and I know we talked about an app with Shani's program. I think an app in this instance might be great as well. I don't know if there's some sort of cloud-based app program where families can have all of this information continually put into this app, and then the kid would have access to it as they get older. And I think that's maybe where you're going. But it's really cool. I love how you found all of these gaps from your personal experience, and it looks like you're filling them. But I wonder if it sounds like people are very interested in working with you, and I wonder if working with you could mean if you have some sort of online presence that they could help by self-populating a lot of this information, like changes to their calendars and things like that. But very cool, and I'm jealous of the cool name that you came up with.
Oh, thank you.
I want to, let's be, aware of everyone's time for the other proposals, but it seems like you've done, I mean, this is a nonprofit in and of itself. And I mean, at all three levels, it seems like you could certainly do all of these. Easter Seals wanting to help you would be tremendous as well. I mean, I am never a believer in starting a nonprofit if there's already one in existence with a bigger name than you're going to have that you can house under. I appreciated in Solution 3 that you clearly identified CCSD. So in the keychain in Solution 2, are you kind of alluding like starting with a much smaller group of individuals for something like that?
Well, I planned on starting for the legacy portion of it. I planned on getting like a focus group.
Okay.
To kind of do surveys and stuff to try to like hammer out exactly what are all of the needs according to them, as opposed to what everyone else is saying.
Okay. So for Solution 2, it might be a much smaller group. For Solution 3, it's actually like a full-blown implementation in which we're using CCSD to gather clients and make them aware of this service, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just wanted some clarification there. That's good.
I think it's excellent. I love the documentation part. I think that's really where to go and how to get help. So I think the element of it's great. The only thing that I would add is that you may want to reach out to the School of Education here. Other classes that I've taken, I've spoken to students that are working on their PhDs over in the School of Education, and one person that I know, she was talking about that a lot of minority students that are undocumented, a lot of times they're given IED or IEP plans when they really don't meet
them. 504s, there's another one.
Because it's just really a language barrier for the children. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I can find, I don't remember her name right now, but I probably can find it through email or something. I think working with the School of Education might be helpful.
Okay, to get more information.
In your program, would it be starting with like elementary school and just progress through their education, like through higher education?
3 years
old. Would it
old.
follow them, or would they get like with people coming at certain different levels?
No. It would be open to everybody. So it would start as soon as possible. So these families, they need help the minute these children are born. Help and access and.
So just all the way through.
Yes. It wouldn't work with just a set amount of people. Depending on what it is. The documentation, obviously, I think feels right with the access would start with a big campaign, internet-based, because everybody can access it. But we would have meetings so that people can actually talk about their experiences, and then they can also write in and give their feedback.
And I don't know if it could be a component, but you have a big brother, big sister. It's a really good. Yeah, so it's really, so exactly. It's really, I think, if you can, and basically put somebody with the whole family, I guess, or would it just be with the disabled?
They work better one-on-one in that sense, but you all can have guest speakers come and talk to all the families together. Those kinds of things work pretty well. But for the child to have like a mentor that's there for him, that can relate to only him, is really important.
Yeah. My son had that, and he had learning disabilities, so we had the IEPs and all. I think that there's a lot of insensitivity, honestly, even amongst the principal, the staff.
Yeah.
When I went to an
IEP sensitivity training.
IEP meetings, they were like, they didn't understand why he was getting into fights with other kids, and it's because the other kids were bullying him. He would come home and it's like all these kids are bullying me, so it's like. Mm-hmm. They need the sensitivity training too, as well. Maybe the everyone, the students around them.
Right. It's to be fair. It's not to give them privileges, and that's what I think a lot of people that don't deal with it every day don't understand.
Yeah, and a lot of those students, they wind up getting into trouble and whatnot, or like getting suspended and expelled because the sensitivity they don't, the people around them aren't. It's not that they can't realize it. Obviously, I mean they should know, but that seems like they can't. When they act out. Mm-hmm. There's no training there to handle it, and like they kind of just push them off, like, oh,
Well,
Yeah.
and there's such a small population, but just because there's a small population doesn't mean that.
And
they need to
disability
go
doesn't
there.
always mean like you're incapable of moving or things like that.
Right.
Like it can be just a learning disability and it can affect a child a lot.
Right, everything does.
All right, we're going to move forward. I did just load in module 4 the discussion so that you guys,
Okay.
and I would ask, just because I'm sure we'll have a bunch of side conversations at the end of this session, please before Sunday or by Sunday evening, load some comments in there about Jared's proposal. I'll do the same, but I know we won't have time to get to that today. So let's make sure that we get him some feedback as well. Who's up next?
I'll go. All right, so long story short, my thing with, because of 2 classes ago, me, Kim, and Jeremy did a big paper on Maryland Parkway corridor, the lack of, the possible light rail. And so I kind of became like a really big policy wonk, I guess, on what's going on with that. So my idea originally was going to be like maybe some sort of bike share, because the RTC has a bike share downtown. They do it through that whole area and have it maybe connect to ULD. Lo and behold, through just like 2 quick Google searches, I found out that they already have a plan for this.
It was a great idea.
Yeah, but
Someone else thought
they already thought of it first. So, and my big thing is someone who's born and raised in Clark County. I mean, I just am so, it's important to me how we just build more roads for more cars. There literally is like just such, I say it in this thing, it's just 20th century for 21st century problems. And it's like so bad that we don't utilize multimodal. So the special utility corridor is a half-mile east of Maryland Parkway, and if anyone's familiar with it, it runs behind Orr Middle School all the way up from Charleston to Twain. It's just a really, and I grew up over there. It's a really ugly plot of land where it's just like a huge median. It's one Spencer's on this side, and it's just power cables for NV Energy. It's really ugly. It's an eyesore. So the idea was for NV Energy to donate that land. Clark County, City of Las Vegas, through use of easements, they come in and they just basically install the power lines or move them underground and make trails there, like bike trails, walking trails, and kind of do artsy stuff there. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen out in Henderson. City of Henderson's done 2 trails like that, the Amargosa Trail and the Nicole Hills Trail. Down here, they've done the Pittman Walk Trail, the Flamingo Arroyo Trail, basically trails like that. So multi-use trails where they can mountain bike, they can walk, and it's kind of a whole point is if you've been on Maryland Parkway, you know just how bad the traffic is getting from Russell to Charleston. It's I think it's the 3rd heaviest commuted area. Anyway, so I guess my problem, not really grasping the concept of this assignment, mine is very broad, so I haven't really narrowed it down yet. So it's very broad, so bear with me on this. And the reason I'm going before Jeremy is because Jeremy has the same idea, and he's actually done better work and narrowed it down. So,
Well, I mean, that's what we're here for. So there's no harm there. I want to be clear on that.
So Joe, you ready to go?
Joe's up.
So yeah, my solution was, provide a north-south trail connection between downtown Las Vegas. It is a heavily trafficked corridor, and some of the numbers: 55,000 residents, 81,000 jobs. On this corridor, there's 8.1 people per acre. That's 80% higher than the rest of Las Vegas as a whole. And the employment density is 1.9 jobs per acre, 495% higher than the rest of Las Vegas. So a lot of people use this corridor. Now, since they're probably not going to do light rail here, they're not going to do anything else but provide more buses. It's going to be on the community to try multimodal. Now, as anyone knows who lives in Las Vegas, it's brutal to walk. It's just the worst. My original idea was maybe have some sort of tree initiative, plant a bunch of mesquite trees all up and down Maryland Park with red shade for people walking, kind of an overhang.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my original idea, but the Spencer corridor, I kind of latched onto that because it's already been they already want to try to do something like that. And so getting people off Maryland Parkway and actually making it somewhat aesthetically pleasing, and also encouraging people to walk and commute, either bike, that whole thoroughfare. And there's a couple schools over there for parents to walk their kids to school, kids to walk through the neighborhood, and everyone's already using that place anyway. They jump the walls and use that little area to cross traffic to cut through the neighborhood. So it's already being used illegally and informally. So the main goal of that, kind of broad, was just to increase a different multimodal form of transportation in that corridor. Also, to increase access to park and rec. The solution 2 is to increase access to park and rec facilities in an underserved area. If you guys have ever done any of the trails, 250 Beltway Trail is really cool. It runs alongside the 215. It's just, I biked it a couple times. It's encouraging, having those options available, I think encourages more people to utilize them. No one in Vegas likes to walk. No one likes to, utilize the bus, and all we do is drive here. And like I said, these issues are not getting addressed. So NV Energy is willing to donate this land, but they're not going to pay for anything. And the big issue with that roadblock is it has to be safer for people. So if there's power lines hanging, in case the power line breaks, they have to be able to get to it through there with their trucks. Long story short, it's got to be something that's functional and fungible for both parties, for the community to utilize it for the Parks and Rec area, and also NV Energy to be able to go there and, in case something happens, to gain access. And then the third solution is the possible funding mechanism, because NV Energy, like I said, they'll own the land, they'll operate the land, but they're not going to put anything towards it. Jeremy and I went and met with the guy from the RTC, and they talked about a couple like TAP and CARCUM, or what was the acronym? I can't remember. Farm.
It's an air quality mitigation program.
FLA, 4-letter acronym. So the problem with those really are like very low ceiling. Like it's only $1 million here, $2 million there. This project, if they actually put the power lines underground, would exceed like 30 million. I mean, it's a huge, huge money. And the other thing is Clark County, the city of Las Vegas, using easements to use that land, because the city cuts off at Sahara, so part of it will be in the city of Las Vegas proper, part of it will be in Clark County proper. It's getting the funding for it. So through another class here, I was made a prize of the Nevada Planning Guide, which allows for a special assessment district that can be defined by the NRS. Is like just basically you set a tax there for property taxes for people to utilize that neighborhood. So that might be a way to utilize funds. I mean, it would have to take time, take increments over time. Obviously, won't be done overnight, but the legislature can pass that, and that's why I was talking about special assessment district to provide necessary services. So the owners and the businesses can help pay for that, so they can see some sort of fungible payoff for their tax dollars. Bless you. The big thing too is I have to narrow this down to something that can be done, because I can't really do much. I can't put dirt to ground, and this project is a long way off. When we met with the RTC guy, basically, I mean, I don't want to use the word Hail Mary, but he's not too. He doesn't think it's going to happen.
I look back over that comment. Yeah, it was negative. Totally negative.
It's so cost prohibitive that it just, even though it services a lot of people, it's a very dense population. It will help bridge, downtown to UNLV. It probably won't get done for a while though. So I guess I don't know what my scope would be, but maybe Jeremy can pick up on that one.
I'm wondering what their problem is with this whole application, because I mean we were talking about that in environmental studies, how like the metro link, why can't they ever expand it? And they keep talking about it, and it's like they want to put it at the airport, but it's like that's fine and all, but if the airport's nearby, you want to put it going downtown or going to Henderson and to Summerlin.
There's a couple reasons I can't do that. The whole thing with the indexing fuel tax dollars, they cannot access those funds for anything but more roads. That's it. Not for any other options built into the actual legislation. They cannot access the money for anything but more roads, not even for more buses. And the RTC RTC is just kind of like a planning commission. They're not really a fungible. They don't have money, basically. They just get what's given to them. Yeah, I mean, it's hardly what they do. So they really aren't like some sort of Las Vegas is rare for a city of our size. We don't have, like you said, Metrolink. Nothing that exists like that here. There's no BART. There's no T. There's no L. There's nothing like that like there is in big cities. So, and the other issue two things with the airport. The Tax Cap Authority is the third biggest lobbyist here in Nevada, and they didn't want any type of monorail going there, any train going there, nothing. So that's why they pretty much lobbied. That's why it took Uber and Lyft almost a year before they even got to that. And there wasn't really, it's like have you guys seen the Uber loft there? Kim, you've seen it, right? I mean, it's a really pretty pathetic lot compared to other airports. So the tax cap lobby is really powerful here in Clark County. So that was one reason we don't see that. And
buses is a no-go. I mean,
well, the buses don't service enough people, and that's the big thing. The ridership is nowhere except for Maryland and the Strip. Yeah. That's it. Maryland and the Strip pretty much pay for the buses that go everywhere else, and Charleston, Sahara.
Yeah, it's kind of like in California, though, I mean, bus ridership is going really down. Like, people are not riding the bus anymore. They're just not. And it's like the very, very low of the, people that maybe really can't, do anything else. They're taking the public, the buses rather.
And the
'Cause I
other
mean,
too, well, with the buses too, with the way these master plan communities were built, they were built to keep buses out.
Yep.
They were
There's
intentionally
no-
built that
there's
way
no
because they don't
buses
want
that come
buses to
down.
access this. So it's really was such a terribly planned. No one's more Vegas than me, but the fact that when they built the 215, the fact that they're building Project Neon, I'm older, all right. But the fact they built Project Neon and the fact they built the 215 and they didn't even put a lane in the middle just to lay down tracks to have bus specific lanes, they're still not doing that with Project Neon either. It's like I said, it's 20th century thinking for 21st century problems.
Build for the future.
No, they're building for the past. That's the thing.
Exactly.
And they're not using multimodal forms of transportation, and they're not going to. So it has to be. This is why my thing was going to be a grassroots like bike share, and maybe planting some trees, mesquite trees, overhang trees, so it makes it more aesthetic to drive up Maryland or to ride your bike up Maryland or walk up Maryland. That was kind of my big thing. So that might end up being what I.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad plan. I mean, your solution one, and I commented back to you.
Yeah, and I appreciate. But my thing was I was very broad.
No, it's okay. But on the solution one, I mean, I appreciated the depth of thinking, and I appreciate that every solution you had, you went in to relate to other cities that have done something similar. But yeah, you got to narrow it down a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
I thought that's what this was, an exercise in narrowing it down. So that's kind of why. So.
Well, it's happening now, so it's all good. It's all good. Please, you guys make some comments. I'm okay to stay a few minutes if you guys are. So I want to make sure everyone feels that they get.
Yes, Ms. Vegas. Yes, Caitlin. Oh yeah.
You don't have a sash.
No, I live like in Old Henderson, so
That's Henderson proper.
So I know that you said that Henderson, is known for trails and everything, and I know that the city itself spearheads a lot of those projects and funds them because that's one of their priorities. But it'd be interesting to see how they funded it, and then how maybe the city of Las Vegas use them as a model. Maybe I don't know.
Actually, so I do have how they funded those. Hughes funded. City of Henderson funded one. The American Nevada Corporation funded one of those. Like, there's actually a lot of the neighborhoods and the HOAs helped contribute money to those.
Private funding.
Private funding. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, Howard Hughes. The big 215 Beltway Trail was Howard Hughes Corporation funded that, and it crosses both City of Las Vegas and Clark County. Something on a side note, very tangent point. Something I learned about UNLV. We actually cut through 2 commission districts. And I don't think anyone knows that. And there's a commission, and I tried to contact both. I got in touch with one of the commission liaisons. But yeah, District G, which is Jim Gibson's, is like south, and it cuts literally through the middle of campus, which is bizarre to me. That something this important for Clark County is sitting on 2 separate districts. That just seems very
Clark County-ish.
Very Clark County. I work for the county, and that's actually a great point. It seems very Clark County. So, and that's why they both. I don't want to throw it on the bus here, but they both really had no idea about this. When I talked to both. I talked to the secretary and the liaison. They both really didn't know about the Special Grant Project, and they knew a little about the Maryland Corridor, of course. But it just seemed very this is so not an issue and no one cares. No one cares, and I think it's actually an important issue, especially with how much UNLV is growing and how much it's going to grow with the downtown campus, with the medical center. So with that being said, too, this also crosses 2 jurisdictions, Clark County and City of Las Vegas. So you have that as well. So that's kind of the big roadblocks for that. City of Henderson is just its own entity, and they can do what they want. This is you're crossing 2 very, the 7 most powerful people in Nevada are the commissioners, crossing 2 districts, and the 2 most powerful entities are county and city, Las Vegas, and you're crossing both those. So that's
they
kind of
they also got people to buy in to do private funding. So I feel like they could maybe model after that.
The other, go ahead, please, Shannon.
No, I was just going to say, along with the development that's going on, because there are quite a few developments going on that will be near Paradise and where the Venetian is, Paradise and the Sands, area. There's a convention center. I mean, C's is doing convention center. Wynn is building something behind them. There's going to be this big globe concert system. So, I mean, maybe asking them to help.
And I guess my big thing is just if it's not getting them to those facilities, they don't care. Sorry, they don't give a shit. They do not care. They don't care about anything It doesn't get them to those facilities. They don't care about people. Even though, you know, probably 50% of the
Yeah,
people
well,
work
that's what I
there.
was thinking. If you
They don't
could,
care.
if you
They're
could
not gonna put
extend it where
incentives.
it's going to make their part, you know, those areas look good as well. Maybe like kind of somehow leads into that.
The yellow brick road to their.
But what you're saying though is that's the thing is that this isn't for to get people to see. Let's get people to home,
No,
to
yeah.
work, to school,
Right.
to hospitals, to commerce centers. And that's the big thing. That's why Maryland's such a huge corridor from Sahara down to Russell. It's a nightmare, number one, but also it's such a hub for just everything that is Vegas. As somebody like grew up like down the street from here, like this is like where everyone does things. And there's some place to eat, some place to shop, some
Or I
place
mean,
to
the
hospitals.
places around there though, even, you know, maybe they can add that as part of development, like in terms of, if they're not developing any of these big convention centers or whatever, maybe the casinos around that area, or like, you know, some retailers around that area want to make the area look better.
And you'll have to pass
So
legislation.
let's, Jeremy, is your call?
One
Go
comment.
ahead.
So about a year and a half ago, I was at an International Gaming Institute, and Oscar Goodman gave a speech, and he was talking the entire time about the Maryland Corridor
Yeah,
project.
Maryland Corridor. Yeah, the light
Yeah,
rail.
but
That's-
so
You want the
there,
light
there
rail.
must still be people working on it because
Yeah.
his entire, I don't remember it because I was not taking notes.
Yeah.
But the entire 45 minutes he spoke on that entire project. So I would think there would,
Keep
at least a
saying
year and a
they're
half
working on
ago,
it,
people
so.
were talking about
Okay,
it.
so when I was at UNLV as a freshman in 2000, the big thing was Midtown UNLV. That was like the big project. And then it morphed into Maryland Corridor. And it's still, so now we're going on 18 years.
And they're
Yeah.
still talking about it,
They're
just
still
so you
talking
know.
about it.
They
That's-
said,
nothing's
vote
been done.
yes on that every time.
Nothing's been done. I
Yeah.
know what your point is. Like everyone talks about
Yeah.
it, but there's nothing being done. And that was kind of my point. Like something.
It's interesting because I think that's what he said that he's been marketing.
Yeah,
There was legislation, right?
2020 to pass it twice. Yeah.
So there's still studies.
So
And the guy we talked with RTC. I mean, he just I don't want to poo-poo, but he just was like, this is not gonna happen. He's like this.
He wasn't positive.
Yeah.
He was realistic about the barrier.
Yes. And, you know, he talked a lot about the easements. He goes, you know, and this is one thing I didn't learn. I learned it's very easy to get easements. People do easements all the time. And that's actually something he goes, that's like your easiest hurdle is the land's no big deal. Even the MB Energy will do easements all day for people to access it. The same thing with the RC crossings for like this, you know, the lights for people like to, where the bike, the trail keep going. Because that stuff's easy. It's the NV Energy power lines. It's how do you get those condensed or consolidated or under the ground. And he goes, NV Energy is not going to pay a cent because what benefit is them?
Well, they have to sell it to the power customer.
Yeah.
And
because it is NV Energy owned land, that's where you're, even if it's the land sits vacant, it's a huge, like, not huge, but it's a nice piece of property that you could do it. Yeah. You could do a trail there and like do other things like benches, you know, just bathrooms, whatever, just whatever you need, like turtles for kids to climb on.
Turtles.
Whatever. JC Park had turtles you could climb on as a kid. The sprinklers that came out. So things like that can be done on the trail. And NVRD's, they're fine letting you use the land, doing easements. But their big thing that he said was we have to be able to access in case power line goes wrong, and we're not going to pay a dime for it. So.
Neil, was there any comments? Sorry, I heard some rustling.
No, I
Okay.
I can wait for Jeremy.
Okay.
and
Thanks,
comment.
Neil.
Yeah. Well, I'll just comment on both at the same time.
You're the real MVP.
I
Can you
have
hear me,
one
Neil?
Go ahead.
small question, and it's what I asked you on the way here. You talked about getting access to parks and recreation, but like, are parks really a big thing here because it's so hot? Like that's such a, it's an ignorant question, but I didn't know.
I feel like our
Get
parks are
there,
all
in
utilized.
shade.
I guess my thing is the way I view this is such that community right there is so underserved.
Okay.
The schools are shit. The transportation is shit.
Yeah.
The neighborhood is just like there's no amenities. I just would feel it actually gives us some neighborhood pride. And
Yeah.
I guess people I think would like go to Orr on like a Tuesday night. There's soccer games going left and right. There's a lot of people who utilize it, but it's just for things that are like Parks and Rec organized. You know, the outdoor.
Yeah.
They have something there for them to use. I do think it would get used. Now, mind you, in a year it could be tagged up like no other. It could be, you know, a haven for, you know, kids to, you know, drink 40s and, you know, smoke pot. Probably, hey, it is what it is, but I do think it would instill some sort of sense of that neighborhood community pride. And yeah,
I'm not from here, so I don't know.
120 degrees, I agree. Yeah, that's why, you know, maybe plant a lot more trees.
Yeah,
It
it
makes
makes
sense
a
to no
big
trees.
difference.
Yeah.
It makes a big
It makes a
difference.
big difference. And that's
Makes
kind
a
of was,
big difference.
Makes sense.
What Brian said. Like I kind of heard about this. I've been focused on transportation. That's what I was interested in here. So, and then we did that paper for sure. And so talking to person at RTC for that other paper, this was mentioned. This is where I got. So I'm like, okay. And so I learned about that, and this seemed like something that would be more approachable than light rail, more realistic. And then yeah, I guess I've learned that it's still like any other project. It's supposed to be owned by basically to get something. But it seems like so they studied it. They did like an art project, like a really basic feasibility study, and the way he described it was that was to see if there was any no-go barriers, and there weren't. So they did this larger study that was published in that's just a high level planning, and they did a lot of work. And there's quite a bit of information in the appendix about it. They did a lot of outreach. Got some.
I'll hold up the slides for you if you'd like, so you can see, what the
yeah, like that. I'm specifically interested in that section because
that's the big section. Yeah,
it's between not quite Flamingo, but at Twain and pretty close to.
Yeah,
and it's not fenced,
no.
And most of the rest of it's fenced, which I don't know. I think is more of an illusion. So that's what I thought about it, and so since I like most plans, they just get published and then sit on the shelf. If nobody does something about them, I thought this was an opportunity to maybe focus on it. So let's see. Besides what Brian said, let's see. I met with Flippa City, so the transportation, and yeah, they like from them it was a kind of a completely different story. It was a oh yeah, maybe we can get the money from these two funds to fund design next year. And then, so I talked to the county, and actually I haven't talked to you yet, but just heard yesterday back today from the county person that I've contacted with. And their story was, oh, this isn't even in our 5 years capital improvement plan. This is nowhere on any radar. And they own the biggest section of their jurisdiction section of it. And the city and county are the owners of the project. Everybody says that. They have to be the ones to do something. And so, so she took it to Public Works Director and green lighted, okay, yeah, we would like you to look at this and look at funding and alternatives for they'd be interested in having this report.
Awesome. And I'm on now are you on did you get the letter?
Yeah.
So we're now on the, we're on the committee. Pedestrian survey, impact survey.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
really good. That's awesome.
Yeah, I meant to tell you that to you. I don't know if you got the email today.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, pedestrian comfort focus group number 1. So we have 3 times to meet in August and November.
Right.
Awesome.
And they're doing demonstration projects, which this seems like perfect for a demonstration project. And so, like, whatever the alternatives, awareness. Basically, I don't want to get people excited like they did doing 10 years down the road, maybe. But doing a small demonstration event would be cool. And doing something productive that the county says they want. So I thought that was good. And I think that's really what it is. Like, find out how to piece it together. Like Wells Fargo, they talked to them. The plan is on the corner there at Charleston. They are interested. Hey, maybe we could use some of this for parking. Maybe build a trailhead there. They have a foundation. Could put some bucks up. Use the reputation.
They could use
Yeah,
they
they
could
could
use the
yeah.
publicity. Yeah,
Yeah, they're getting a lot of
Any of it.
scholarships
Yes,
these
they could.
days.
And right. So anyway, all that kind of stuff, like tying in the schools, what can they take some ownership of the areas in Trailhead? The neighbors in particular, that picture you had, would they be up for stuff now and make a very simple agreement with them being just to test those waters? How do we use this now that we have an easement? Or can we get a temporary smaller something? That's right there by the.
Yeah, it's right by Orr. It starts at Orr and it runs past Lucy Road and then it ends right before it.
And
It runs behind the where the Boulevard Mall is.
I drive around town a lot, and people do use the parks, use the parks like in the 20 neighborhood
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
I shop right there. Well, people walk and people buy.
Where the
In
bonds
those
is? You mean the
neighborhoods
bonds right
already,
there?
right? Yeah.
Right, yeah, 'cause I live,
Yeah,
I live near
that's
there.
the Molasses Park. I used to work at Cambridge. Like, yeah, people
It's
use
a
it
nice-
all
it's
the
a
time,
big
but
park,
at night
yeah.
though, it gets a little sketchy.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
So the whole, I'm not terribly interested in that part of it. That's I want to turn webcams on. I want to live stream corridor. Clip of it so that they snitch on. Hey, go outside. So I think that'll work.
Like
snitches,
like
snitches get stitches, man.
like a neighborhood watch 2.0 or what?
Make Orwell fiction again.
So I don't have the experience that you guys have in this, but both of you kind of suggested some funding analysis type of work for your solution 3. Is there any feasibility in that? Is that really? I know I asked you for 3 solutions. Is that something that's worthwhile at this point if you are getting motivation?
Well,
like these
county
meetings.
said
The county said, yeah, it's
Okay.
useful. But the problem though was when we talked to the RTC guy, he gave us the numbers for what that could actually do. And there was the one. The top one is like $2 million for the entire year for the entire county.
Yeah, that might fund design though. But
I just didn't think it was too optimistic with those avenues.
Okay.
with the planning board, the city was like, with what's done, that's going to make the design engineering
Easy,
simple,
yeah,
because they
very
don't have to come up
Yeah.
with concepts. It's all.
Yeah, there's one on the feasibility of it.
Okay.
That like they really did put together a great it can work. It's just the main thing is just the NV energy power lines. That's the main argument.
Yeah, but figuring out like timing, like the district that if it's politically, that would be a solution for it.
Well, Chris G's turning out so that.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up with one more, and then again, you guys just put your comments about Jared's proposals into the discussion.
Hey, Anthony, can I ask a quick question before we move on? So are Brian and Jeremy, are you guys working together on this?
Not yet, but I think
our brains are melded on.
Yeah, I think the end goal, not yet.
Because it seems like you guys would make a good team because you're very different in your style, and I think you could cover a lot of the challenges that are going to be at your feet if you do something like this. But I'll just say quickly, I think when it comes to planning transportation dollars, when they say they're not available, at the federal level, they are available. And I know Southern Nevada is in Washington, D.C. all the time working on funding, and funding for projects like this are in the transportation bill. And Jared might know more about how it impacts Nevada, but there's options out there. So anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have on PowerPoint because I knew that it would be late and your visuals help tell the story. So I'm really tired right now, and I know that all of you are too, right? Okay, so I just need to be able to get this on. Josh was able to show me how to access this. Do you know how to access this, Anthony?
No, they're still here though.
Okay, thank you.
Spinning you around, Neil.
Hey Josh, so logging on again. I don't know how to do that here. I went to new user, or switch user, but it didn't. What is it called? Yeah, so it's yeah, so it's like, what awesome people we have in this room.
I know.
Pretty incredible.
I know, I would be happy to work for any.
Congrats on your job offer.
I know. It's just like I'm not getting myself where I want to be with you. Because I was thinking of that long
Yeah.
So I guess everybody can like stand up, stretch a little bit, whatever. Get your little,
Feedback that I had written for you. What if they don't want to work with you? No, I was like, well, I don't know what else to say. What if they don't want to work with you? And you're like, well, they offer me a job.
Good. Guys are a little. Amber gave these to me because I used to like have like sugar loads when we worked together. So.
No, but I know that's a strong point for you. And
Yeah, and actually, I
that's
have
been
not.
through it, and I think you should have,
Like you said, I mean,
Yeah. Trisha introduced me to a lady who is a victim of a survivor.
Well, they have that at the
They have like a volunteering. So it doesn't
They
make a huge plans, they can have that
experience.
experience.
Yeah, so like, I do the same thing here.
Yes, I heard back from.
Okay, folks, without further ado, it's about 8 o'clock. This lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, but I would hope that I would have everyone's attention and focus for the next 10 minutes. So, legacy project proposal. I put this together again for the visuals. But does anyone know what this structure is that the kids are looking at? Hydroponics, yes. You said hydroponics, ding ding. You have extra points towards food credit. All right. So my legacy project centers around, can a mobile hydroponic classroom in Las Vegas be transformative amongst high school students with involvement in workforce development, STEM-related careers? I've been dealing with this issue of food insecurity, okay, but then there's the issue of how are we going to change kids' behavior toward eating better, and then knowledge about agriculture. And so the defining moment was, I think last class, I did a paper on workforce development. And so, and then with talking to Anthony, challenging me, like I thought I had everything set up. I figured that workforce development would be an issue to address. When I looked at the amount of income disparity with certain groups of people, right, it was great. We're talking about the median income, for example, for a Black person, specifically a Black man, was $39,460, which is the same income level as a Hispanic woman in 1967, right? And so these disparities go all over the place. And so there was an issue with why was there such an income disparity when we had people, diving into education, right, ferociously. What was the cause of this? Well, let's take a look at agriculture as a field of study, right? It's comprised of STEM, academic content, nutrition awareness campaigns, and increased demand for local food production. Agriculture, being a part of STEM, okay. One thing I found in research was that people's career choices greatly impacted income level. And so you had construction being a popular career among certain groups. You had the food industry being a popular career choice. You had education being a popular career choice. But let's look at education. Let's look at STEM activities. And then let's look at the fact that there's an emerging market of hydroponics, right? It's taken, oh gosh. Anthony, you don't see this, but the word traction, I know how to spell it. It's TRACTION. Don't ding me. You dinged me last time. Oh my gosh.
I didn't actually ding her.
Yes, you did. Okay.
You did not reduce points.
My confidence level was shot, right? Okay, but we look at these companies, Green Our Planet, Indoor Farms America, Urban Seed, and Oasis Biotech. Green Our Planet, their focus is on school gardens, right? Indoor Farms America, really their model involves them creating material and then selling it. They're doing business overseas with China. In Urban Seed and Oasis Biotech, their intentions are to supply produce for the restaurants on the strip. But who's going to, where's the, who's going to actually work in these companies, right? Are we going to outsource it? Are we going to develop our community so that they're ready for this emerging market? I think we can. When you look at the income inequalities, workforce preparedness, career choices, along with other factors, have contributed to reports of income disparities between ethno-racial communities. And so we're educating these kids, right? We're trying to close the income gap. We're trying to make sure that people are food secure. But there's a gap. We have to recognize that. According to Workforce Connections, Southern Nevada's Workforce Development Board, of the 9 industry sectors identified for Vegas, 6 sectors have origin in STEM. Surprisingly, agriculture is one of them for Las Vegas. I found that fascinating. What grows in the desert? Well, I'm fortunate enough to work at Cooperative Extension in the horticulture department. We educate people on all things garden, community garden resources. We have that. Using the gardens as outdoor classrooms. We do that. I manage the youth horticulture education program, and it's fantastic. However, we all know, right, based on days like today and so forth, growing things in the desert, there's a challenge.
We're growing watermelons.
What's
Just
that?
saying, watermelons. We have 26
Watermelon,
watermelons.
Yeah, watermelon, Armenian cucumber. I mean, there are a lot of things that grow here, right? But how can we use what we have? We have space. We know that when it gets really hot, right, we do a lot of things indoors. So let's bring those community gardens indoors, okay? And then with that, let's focus on workforce. Okay, so told you about the issues somewhat. There's further reading in the paper, but I'm just spare time. When we look at sustainable solutions, this is my daughter here, Jillian, and we were at the Giant Science Expo 2018 World Market Center talking about hydroponics. And there she's talking about, I think this is a plant that's growing in a gel solution. Hydroponics, by the way, is soilless gardening. Okay? Who are we going to address with workforce development? A lot of times people think workforce development may start with those people over the age of 21, right? But I'd like to challenge you to think about workforce development starting in middle school. Okay, actually, technically, and I'm a purist with this, it really does start pre-K, getting those kids involved in preschool education, right? But we'll focus on the middle and high school students. We have to change behaviors. We have to get them thinking about opportunities that they may not be exposed to necessarily, right? Okay, but what? What are we going to do with these kids? We're going to focus on workforce development. It's a term that's used frequently, but it has to be defined. And so when we're talking about workforce development, we're talking about those new skills and training. Again, reaching our younger audiences. Now, we can go broad, or we can look at those vulnerable communities where they may not necessarily have access to some of the whole science-y type of programs that other schools have. Okay, so I'm talking about Department of Juvenile Justice Services, their public service program early reporting center. You have a captive audience there. You have kids who would be interested in doing something different out of the norm, right? Talking about a skill, talking about getting them interested in STEM. Title I high school programs and the Summit View Youth Correctional Center, targeting this vulnerable community. When I think of going toward getting grant funding and so forth, thinking about who are those vulnerable communities that use this resource, use this person, right? And why and how is this going to get done? Well, I had to look at frameworks that are available already. So the SNS Framework, Governors Council, Food Security, National Institute of Food Agriculture, they actually map out, what the problem is. They've done the research, and oftentimes it's just a matter of figuring out how you're going to implement it. With SNS, they actually give a suggestion for implementation, encouraging local businesses to support education through programs to better connect opportunities for student career mapping, mentoring, and educational needs of employees. Governor's Council on Food Security, their interest is addressing the current models of purchasing and distribution of nutritious foods to increase economies of scale, link frequencies of deliveries, availability of local food to specific needs of communities throughout the state. Now we're talking about local food production. And who's going to be involved in that? When you look at the National Institute of Food Agriculture, one of their goals is to advance America's global preeminence in food and agricultural science. All right, so now we've identified areas we need in Las Vegas. We've identified usable frameworks. What solutions do I propose? I had to get some inspiration. You can follow some of these links. Let me just give you an example here. We had Chicago, Brooklyn, Los Angeles. There were some ideas that they had, right, going on. But I love this idea of this urban iconic bus. Now, this was delivering fresh food and water, okay? But I'd like to use something like this as a classroom. When we look at here, what's going on in Brooklyn, I mean, this is just thinking outside of the box, right? Exploring this idea of greenery, bringing green to the concrete jungle, and thinking outside of the box. Then we had in Brooklyn, right? This is a person who has a truck and he has this garden in his truck. Okay. Have you guys seen these before? Is this something different?
Mm-hmm. There is something in Nevada, in southern Nevada, where they go around a company. I forgot the name. I need to get it, but they go around and they basically set up gardens at the schools and whatnot. And
It's Green Our Planet. Yeah.
Yes.
Green Our Planet.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, Green Our Planet. They are doing a phenomenal job right now with going to different schools. But Green Our Planet
Well, they
creating
can
change
do it with
now.
everyone, with various industry. It's just they do schools, they do different stuff right now.
A lot of the companies that are out there, they actually get their resources from cooperative extension. So we're familiar with what our partners are doing, and we are promoting. They're doing phenomenal jobs, and it's fantastic. So on that level, I think it's great, but no one is really addressing workforce development in this arena. All right, so let me go back to this. We go down to.
Sure, let's move on to the solutions, please. I appreciate the
Sure,
work that you put
time
into
is of
this,
the
but
issue.
yeah, we want to move on here.
So let's see, with this here. So looking at the solutions, I was thinking of having the mobile trailer for the mobile community garden, right? Educating kids about hydroponics through that. Or I can talk about the nutrition component of hydroponics. Or I can talk about hydroponic and gardening tool education. I know you asked for 3, but a 4th component could be internships with local partners after everything is said and done, and mapping where kids can get these internships, opportunities.
And what do the vehicles look like for each of those? So when we talk about, you've got the mobile solution to go to the school, right, to educate them. What does the nutrition education look like? How do you deliver that?
Sure. Nutrition education would be delivered with teaching kids, almost like a home economics, but actually with what kids are growing, farm to table experience.
Okay. So that doesn't require a mobile. In your proposal, it was like a mobile bus.
Yes,
correct?
it actually does require the mobile bus
Okay.
because we cannot use the facilities to cook or to do food demonstrations. And home ec is basically X'd out. It has been X'd out for a while. And so we would have to show demonstrations on the truck.
And for solution 3, was there a mobile?
Yes, the mobile component of having the kids, having all of the resources actually on the truck so that we're bringing the supplies to the kids.
So all 3 solutions will require like this mobile, which mobile learning is like kids love the opportunity, right?
They love it.
To actually get out there and do that sort of thing. So I just want to make that clear because on the solutions, I think it's important. The like RTC donates buses, right? There are a lot of different ways to get a mobile solution. Schools love experiences where they are not paying for a field trip. They're not taking their students somewhere, but you're bringing it to them. So I think it's really valuable. I just didn't want you to skate over that fact based on, I know we're at the end here, but that's a really critical piece of her proposal, is that all 3 of these are mobile-based solutions in different formats. So there might be a hydroponic garden that comes to one, but the other one could be like an actual experiential learning around nutrition and showing you how your food can grow.
And the other one would be how to build these hydroponic units. There are 8 basic systems that can be used. And so we want to give kids the chance to actually see it in action, have the hands-on, working, playing with these items, and say, hey, you know what? I may not be really good in math right now. In science, oh my gosh, my grades are horrible, but I really like doing this activity. All right, so then moving forward, the idea is to build a workforce team, and that's actually in progress right now. Workforce at Cooperative Extension does have different workforce components, but we have to pull our tools together and then come up with a logic model that has different pieces that we can address. Build partnerships. I love doing that, so that's in process right now. Creating a curriculum, creating a budget, creating a measurement tool so that we can compile data to secure funding and implement the program and then repeat it in different parts of Nevada and other areas. Does anyone have any questions?
Will I have like
What did you just say?
The ice cream truck music?
Would you like the ice cream truck look? I will see what I can do.
It's just be like Dr. the car,
something like that. Yeah.
So take it you like it. If these are the biggest questions you have, okay?
Yes. Great idea.
No, I think it's a great proposal. You've refined quite a bit in the last few weeks. So, I mean, even the fact that, I came in here tonight saying we haven't talked about data, we haven't talked about a budget. You're thinking through these items. I just didn't want to skate over the fact that it's all mobile solutions coming into a school. That's a really critical piece of it. And that's how you win schools and districts over. There's no dollars going out for them to go conduct a field trip. It's all coming to their schools. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, we can take it wherever, community parks, any awareness campaign, we can be there. And the marketing is on the side of the vans, or these trucks. We drive around and let people know about this. And the data we get, we look at getting data on behavior change, getting data on attitudes toward nutrition, and getting data on workforce STEM-related careers. We can do that. So thank you. Yes.
Well, do you think any of this stuff with the agriculture, with Trump and like giving money, all the issues they're having, is that going to affect anything? Or not?
With regard to securing funding for this?
Yeah, we're all in trouble with funding.
Well, funding is always an issue.
This program may not be here next year.
Right.
I appreciate you guys. So the way that it'll go is I'll be at the other building in the morning. We'll spend a few minutes just going around the room, round table, to say, what are we going to focus on?
Okay.
We've heard a lot tonight, so go home, decompress a little bit. And yeah, it's going to be a quick kind of go around on that. We'll go into budgeting and time management and some data stuff that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And then the rest of it's essentially a working session. We should end with you guys kind of sharing what you have in mind for a timeline, what data points you want to collect, and I'll answer any budget questions. That's a little difficult to do, but we'll be some Excel sheets going back and forth next week.
So we're across the street next.
Yeah, I think you've been to that classroom before.
And
Yeah.
9 or 8?
9.
Oh,
9
9 or 10.
9 to 2. I cut 2 hours off for you guys.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, no, I know.
Anthony, is someone here to cut? I mean, I can cut this off here. Should I just cut this off?
Josh is still here.
Oh, yes? Oh, okay. Okay.
I used to be the one having to do this.
Oh, really?
Nevada.
No, excellent.
Listen, I'm from
No.
New York.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
in
in
Nevada.
word, and it means the meadows, and
It
it's
means,
not
actually, no, that's Las Vegas. Nevada means snow
Nevada.
caps.
That's what
Nevada
I
means
said.
snow caps.
It's Nevada or
What's
Nevada?
It's Nevada.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so we can find a
This,
way.
this weather, I can't say it's hot.
Neil actually messaged me earlier. He was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that what you and Joe put together is really, really nice." And he was really excited for us, so I'm excited too. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, go home. I gotta
Somebody's
go get beer.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
Yeah, I've got some cousins I'm meeting up with. Yeah. See you guys in the morning.
I just had to see. Oh, just was wondering. I was gonna text him. I was like, I didn't know something.
Yeah, if you get all these ideas working.
Yeah.
It's changing the city.
I just want to make sure I'll do.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, no, it brought some clarity to everything.
I know I got the door for it. So are you going or are you staying?
No, I gotta clean this up. Thanks.
See you more.
Yep.